Hello, bat friends. My name is Illyria, and welcome back to Storytime. But today we're starting a brand new book, Dead of Winter, which is the second in the Jeremy Winter series. Alright, chapter 1. Jeremy Winter needed the evidence bag until the severed finger pressed against the plastic. The top of the nail was bent backwards, nearly ripped from the flesh. She fought hard. 3 days since the finger had been sliced from her. The killer had placed it in a Ziploc bag and mailed it. Same as all the others. No odor, though the gases from decay had caused the sandwich baggie to swell a bit. Decomp was in full swing. The dry, brown skin had shrunk as it lost moisture. A small arc of clear space grew between the chipped red nail polish and the cuticle. The bone, a proximal proximal phalanx, the doctor called it, phalanges, jutted slightly beyond the clean cut. A tiny splotch of blood, most likely the victim's, smeared the bottom corner of the Ziploc. He pointed to the evidence. See how the skin has pulled back from the cuticle? People used to think the fingernail kept growing after death. But in reality, the postal inspector looked away and stifled a dry heave. That the one you're looking for? Jeremy tilted his head. Why? You got more of these lying around somewhere? FBI agent Maggie Keeley sighed and shook her head. Ignore Mr. Winter. He's here in a consultant capacity only. Yes. That's the one we're looking for. We appreciate your help. The inspector nodded and kept his focus on Maggie. You made it easy for us. Told us where the envelope was coming from and who'd it be addressed to. Of course, we have caught it in the screening process, even if we hadn't given the information. Jeremy arched his eyebrows. 3 had been sent before this, and they'd only caught 1. Despite the enhanced procedures in place since 9/11, he was still trying to talk Maggie into letting him see the video of the Supreme Court clerks opening the mail and finding the fingers. She'd refused because she thought he would laugh at their reactions. He'd assured her he wouldn't. They both knew he was probably lying. Maggie took the evidence bag and placed it in her briefcase. Thank you for your help. We need to head back to the office and start working on this. So, the people these fingers come from, I mean, are they dead? Maggie clicked her briefcase closed and headed for the door. Have a nice day. Sure, the man said. Listen, you think there will be more of these coming through? Jeremy paused. 4 so far. 5 more, unless they caught the first killer. Based on what they had so far, he knew the answer. Yeah, he said. There's gonna be more. Whoops, I accidentally pushed a button on my computer. There we go. I'm gonna push my keyboard back so I don't keep doing that. Chapter 2. she was under there, waiting for him. He knew because he'd put her there, and bones hadn't moved on their own since Ezekiel prophesied in Old Testament days. Levi licked his lips and forced himself to wait. Let his adrenaline gorge on the anticipation. The musty scent of the old house coated his mouth, and he worked up a good spit, then swallowed. Get it out, but not here. Not this room. His thumbs rubbed circles on the other fingertips, and he closed his eyes, remembering, delighting. Dem bones, dem dry bones. He hunched his shoulders forward and craned his neck, oozing the tension back into its hiding place. The West Texas wind swept under the house and up between the gaps in the floorboards. Dust feigned in every direction and spread the odor of worn-out dirt into the room. Lasers of light beamed through tiny holes in the tinfoil-covered window, scarcely illuminating the area. The bare bulb overhead had long ago given up hope of ever shining again. No matter. He knew his way around his bedroom. The heavy oak dresser scratched the rotting floor as he dragged it away from the wall. He tugged his t-shirt sleeve across his forehead, clearing his throat, and fixated on the floor where the bureau had been. His duffel bag held his necessaries, and he rooted through it, shoving rags and knives and duct tape and other essentials aside before finding the hammer. He wedged the claw between the floorboards and yanked on the handle, splintering the edges of the decaying wood. Years had passed since he had last seen her, and there was no point in hurrying now. Lord knows she wasn't going anywhere. Not this time. The daisy first, then we'll talk. Moments later, the ritual ended. Flower petals died on the floor, insignificant ghosts lost in the next gust of wind. He sat next to her, tilting the skull so he could look her in the eye sockets. They chatted briefly. She, quiet and contrite. He, forgiving but not forgetting. A car horn interrupted his solitude, and his hands morphed into fists, daring her to honk again. Seconds later, she did. He ripped the foil from the window and glared at the vehicle. A woman leaned out the passenger side and squinted, shading her face with her hand. Her shrill screams intensified his anger. "Cody, hurry up! I'm getting hot out here!" He exhaled a stream of torrid breath and ran a hand across his face before turning away. Time to go. After exchanging goodbyes and shoving the dresser back into place, he hurried down the narrow hallway, careful to avert his eyes as he passed his mother's bedroom. Things happened in there. More things forgiven, but not forgotten. His arm and shoulder scraped along the wall. Blood from his lip oozed onto his tongue. Warm, metallic, comforting. Jesus loves me. This I know. Safely in the living room, he paused to look at the faded yellow sign hanging on the open front door. Condemned by the sheriff's office of Pecos County, Texas. The house didn't look much different than it had when they'd left about a year ago. But nobody cared about it back when the property taxes were being paid. Outside, the stifling air blanketed the homestead. February shouldn't be this hot. The place hadn't changed, except for the rusted metal chair that no longer kept guard on the porch. The seat was now wedged against a mesquite tree halfway across the yard. A victim of the wind. A perfect picture painted for him by the Lord. The tree represented Levi, planted and prospering. The chair signified the wicked and ungodly spoken in the Psalms. The chaff which the wind driveth away. Chaff, tossed in the breeze and burned in the fire. Worthless, like America. But God had a plan. It was all right there if people would read and understand. The Lord had done it for Israel, and, with Levi's help, he'd do it for America. The plan had worked once, and with a few adjustments, it'd work again. Warmth flashed through him, and he flexed his fingers, allowing the tingling sensation to overpower him. He'd wake them up, show them their sins, just as Israel had repented throughout its history. America would too. Jehovah's plan hinged on Levi's obedience, and he dared not fail him. Not again. The horn blasted once more, and he trudged toward the car, his jaw aching as he ground his teeth together. He tossed the duffel in the trunk and slid behind the wheel. "I told you, Mom. My name is Levi now." Called me Levi. "I don't understand why. Cody was always good enough before. Why did we have to come back here anyway?" She pulled her woolen sweater tighter, clutching the thick fabric across her sagging breasts. "For the 1,000th time, the house is on the way, and I wanted to check on the place. And if you're too hot, why don't you take off that sweater?" "I get cold without it, and you know I don't like coming here." "And why is that, Mom?" He started the car and watched the house grow smaller in his rearview mirror. "Okay, we're going. Tell you what, how about we swing into the first Whataburger we see? It's been a while since we had a shake from there. You used to love them, remember? What's it gonna be? Chocolate or strawberry?" She patted him on the arm. "Chocolate, I think. But give me a small. You know what dairy does to my stomach. And you get a strawberry in case I want to taste it." "Sure, Mom." She flipped down the visor and leaned close to the mirror. Her thin fingers tried, in vain, to poof the wispy strands of her sparse gray hair. How long will it take us to get to Portland?" "Another couple of days, but it's worth the drive. I'm pretty excited about this interview." "Well, I certainly hope so. Rambling all over the country like some sort of hobo is no business for an old woman. Florida, Arizona, that horrible New York. I don't know how much more I can take." Levi massaged his left temple. "We're not hobos, and it's not like I'm not trying. I wish you'd got that job in Nashville." "Yeah, me too. You never know, though. If Oregon doesn't work out, I've got a feeling we may head back to Tennessee. But the human resources lady in Portland seems really nice. She said they're desperate for some help." "I don't understand why you're having so much trouble finding a job. A nice boy like you, with a good education." "It's the economy. Everybody's looking for work. Even pharmacists. And it's only been 6 months since I graduated. Finding decent work takes time. All that money for college, and for what? I didn't scrimp and save my whole life so I could sleep in rundown motels. You know, Cody, when your father left, he threw his hands in the air. Mom, do we have to go through this again? I appreciate everything you did for me. Everything. But can you please let it go? His mother turned away and stared out the window, veiny hands clasped together in her lap. You just don't know what it was like. Don't I? He reached over and stroked her arm, resisting the urge to move his hand to her neck. Mom, I'm sorry. It's been a long day. She turned toward him and grinned, her yellowed teeth accented with red lipstick smears. I forgive you. It's what Jesus would do. Now then, what's her name? Who? The woman you're interviewing with in Portland. I'll say a special prayer for her. Oh, I don't remember right off the hand. Susie, Sally, something like that. Well, I'll pray for her anyway. That'd be great, Mom. I'm sure she'd appreciate it. You should pray for her too, you know. God answers prayers. Oh, I've been praying, Mom. I have been. Soon I'll lay her down to sleep. I pray the Lord her soul to keep. And when she dies, she will not wake. I pray the Lord her soul to take. Hold on. Let's see, we'll get to chapter 3 in just a second. I've got a headache, so I'm gonna take a little something for it. Okay, chapter 3. The frothy monkey teemed with people this morning. Mostly college students, by the look of them. Vanderbilt, Belmont, probably a few others mixed in. Young, hip, and gluten-free. Jeremy Winter would have preferred something, or somewhere a bit less trendy. Someplace off Broadway, down near Nashville's famous honky-tonks and tourist shops, where they played real music and served real coffee in real old mugs. Not his call to make, though. The girl had insisted on meeting him here, no doubt because of the crowd. He couldn't blame her, not after what she'd been through. He kept an eye on the door while sipping his free trade Java. Not quite strong enough, but at least it smelled right. No free refills, though. This one would have to last until his left leg spasmed, and he squeezed the calf in a futile effort to dull the pain. More than 16 years since Afghanistan, and the knife-like aches still attacked without warning. The damage from the explosion at the Miller farm 4 months ago hadn't done him any favors either. His mental recovery had been fast, mostly thanks to his girlfriend Maggie and her 6-year-old daughter Rebecca. The physical recovery, not so much. 47 years old, prime of his life, shouldn't take this long to get over bumps and bruises. At least that's what he wanted to believe. Listening at 11:05 p.m. night chat. All right, you have a good rest. Take care of yourself. And thank you for hopping in. His retirement from the Bureau had gone as planned. Smoother than he'd thought possible, considering the accommodations that had been made. Full pension and insurance. Solid recommendations. Even some consulting work thrown his way now and then. Nothing big. Mostly background investigations. Guest lecturing at Quantico. Things like that. Until this. FBI Deputy Director Bailey's call had been curt. Clearly, the man wasn't keen on using Jeremy. Their relationship had been coolly civil, especially toward the end of Jeremy's time with the Bureau. Going over Bailey's head to a senator probably had something to do with that. Jeremy had even considered turning down this contract just to spite him. But what would that accomplish? The money was good, and until he figured out what to do with his retirement, why not stay busy? Keep his name in the game. Besides, with Maggie still working at the FBI, upsetting the director might not be his best move. And so here he sat, waiting for a woman who may or may not have anything to do with a case that may or may not involve a serial killer. The Bureau felt there was no connection between this woman and the others. Couldn't be, for one simple reason. She was still alive. And yet, they'd wanted someone to take a second look at the files. Preferably a person with extensive experience in dealing with serial killers. A professional who'd spent the better part of a career identifying, chasing, and apprehending the worst society had to offer. The Bureau wanted Jeremy. He'd worked for the FBI long enough to know one thing for sure. Nothing was as important as catching their prey. Nothing. The politics and infighting and bureaucracy were all there, but could be set aside, albeit temporarily, when the situation demanded it. And Bailey must have figured this case had enough questions that it was worth putting up with Jeremy. Maggie had confirmed a small task force was being formed, and it was all hush-hush at this point. Didn't want word leaking to the public. A gusty chill shot through the room as a young woman, bundled and scarfed against the frosty morning, slipped into the coffee house and scanned the patrons. Jeremy glanced at the photo on his phone. That had to be her. Late 20s, maybe 5'3", 120 pounds. Hair was shorter and dyed a strawberry blonde. New glasses too, but that was definitely Claire Lawson. He stood and gave a half-wave to attract her attention, then put on his best smile, the one Maggie made him practice. When the woman made eye contact, Claire nodded and weaved his direction. Jeremy motioned toward the chair across from him. Miss Lawson? Jeremy Winter. Thank you for meeting me. She pulled off her knitted gloves and shook his hand. Certainly, Mr. Winter. Though, I can't imagine I can tell you more than you already know. Can I get you some coffee? Maybe some hot tea? Bit brisk out there today. She unwrapped the scarf from her neck and stashed the gloves in her coat pocket. No, thank you. If it's all the same to you, I'd like to get this over with. I need to get back to work. You work from home, is that correct? Yeah, I mean, I've moved since all that happened, but I still... She stared at him for a moment. Do you have some ID I can see? It's not that I don't... Please, Miss Lawson, you should be careful. Here's my badge and driver's license. You'll note, as I said on the phone, the badge has retired. stamped on it. You're more than welcome to contact the FBI to verify I am who I say I am. I'd be happy to wait. She passed the items back to him. I don't think that'll be necessary. I called the local office before coming here this morning. They confirmed you were in town, though I still don't understand why you're here. Jeremy rested his forearms on the table and clasped his hands together. Of course, on occasion, the Bureau uses consultants to follow up on things that may not need the attention of a full-time agent. It saves taxpayer money, and if we do find something that requires the full force of the FBI, rest assured, we turn everything over and let them handle it. Claire scrunched her face and raised an eyebrow. And my case falls in that territory? Why is the FBI even looking at it? I thought the local police were handling the investigation. How much to tell her? Always the tricky part. Unlike the FBI director, Jeremy was convinced of a connection between Claire Lawson and the murders in Tampa, Phoenix, Norfolk, and Birmingham. Barely 2 weeks ago, she had been attacked in her home. The details had popped up in the Bureau's database due to some similarities with the other 4 crime scenes. Calls to the local detectives hadn't shed much light. They assumed it was a home robbery gone wrong. Probably a druggie. But they didn't know about the other women. By rights, Claire Lawson should be dead, and Jeremy needed to understand why she wasn't. It meant something important. Yes, ma'am. The Nashville police do have jurisdiction. I am looking into your, incident, because there may be similarities between it and a few other cases we're investigating. I've seen the detective's file, but I was hoping after some time had passed that you might remember a bit more. Maybe a detail you didn't mention in the prior interviews? Claire leaned forward. Other cases? In Nashville? The police told me it was probably a guy looking to pawn stuff for drug money. That never made sense to me, considering, nothing was taken, even though he knocked me out. Plus the propofol. I mean, drug addicts don't have that stuff, do they? Jeremy sipped his coffee and dragged the back of his hand across his mouth. The sound of ice being blended and crushed overpowered the room for a moment. Who buys an iced drink in February? The other incidents aren't in Nashville. I'm sorry, but I really can't go into a lot of detail about those cases. We, the FBI, I mean, just want to make sure there's no connection between what happened to you and what we're looking into elsewhere. She crossed her arms and studied him for a moment. You want me to go through it again? Agent Winter, I'm just Jeremy. Please. I'm technically not an agent anymore. Okay, Jeremy. I'm trying to forget everything about that day. I'm sure you understand why. But if it'll help, I'll tell you what I remember on 2 conditions. First, when I'm done, you tell me about the other cases. He scratched the back of his neck and sighed. People always think they want to know. Most times, they don't. I'll share what I can. No promises, though. And the second? A white monkey mocha to go. Large. Now that I can definitely manage. Claire nodded and took a deep breath. It was around 9:30 on a Tuesday morning. I was working at my desk in the second bedroom and thought I heard a noise. The apartments were old and you could hear everything through the walls. I figured it was just one of the neighbors going out. It wasn't. You work for an insurance company, correct? She stared down at the table. Yeah, I do. Helping patients make appointments, that kind of stuff. Nothing too dramatic. He turned his palms up and gave his best smile again. Training taught him victims needed encouragement and sympathy. His experience taught him there was usually something they forgot, something vital. Juggling the emotions of the victim with his need for information was a skill he'd always struggled with. You're doing great. So, you heard a noise, and then what happened? Well, I didn't think much of it. Then the door to my office squeaked. I kept it mostly closed because it was always cold, even in the summer. I had a heater next to my desk to keep the room warmer. But when the door creaked, she sniffled and rubbed her hands together as if washing them in an invisible sink. His throat tightened. He repositioned himself, shifting his right hip away from the back of the seat. He let his elbow rest on the butt of the Glock holstered on his waist. Solid and lethal. Take your time, Miss Lawson. I know this is difficult. She brushed a hand under each eye. Before I could turn around, he grabbed me, one hand on my shoulder, pushing me down, and the other across my mouth. He told me not to scream. Left or right shoulder? Left. Probably right-handed. Okay. What else? That's it. I woke up on the floor and called 911. He was gone. And as far as I could tell, nothing was missing. He left white flower petals scattered around. No one could find out what that was about. The police said he came through the sliding door on my deck. I guess I forgot to lock it. They took me to the hospital and I stayed overnight. No evidence of sexual assault, correct? He didn't rape me. Yes, ma'am. According to the hospital report, they found propofol in your system? Uh-huh. It's a general anesthetic. Same thing that killed Michael Jackson. I was unconscious for almost an hour. But like I said, what kind of drug addict carries that around? Jeremy ignored the question. Was there anything distinctive about his voice? An accent? Bad breath? Nothing that stands out. Look, I've been through this 1,000 times in my head. I don't remember anything else. I wish I did. She closed her eyes and massaged her forehead. I really do. I know you do. He handed his business card to her. Put my number in your speed dial. I think I've taken up enough of your time for now. We're not done here. We had a deal. He leaned back in his chair. Miss Lawson, are you sure you're up to this? Yes. I think so. Please. He rubbed his chin and sighed. There have been 4 other attacks around the country. Yours was the 5th. In each case, we found flower petals. That's really all I can tell you. Don't ask. Please, don't ask. What happened to the other girls? Jeremy swallowed hard. They weren't as fortunate as you. Her shoulders drooped. Meaning? He scratched an imaginary itch on his arm. Meaning they didn't survive their attacks. Claire nodded and stared into his eyes. Is he coming back? Jeremy cleared his throat and scrubbed a hand across his chest. We don't know. Wrinkles deepened on her forehead. Do you have children? Heat flashed through him, and concealed emotions flooded by his body. Does he have children? No. Had. At least was going to have before his wife and unborn daughter's murder back in 2002. When he was overseas defending his country instead of protecting his family, Holly and Miranda, his wife, and Mr. Winter? He drew his lips into his mouth and shook his head. Well, if you did have a daughter, would you tell her to do... What would you tell her to do if she was in my place? He squeezed the table's edge and locked eyes with the young woman. Miss Lawson, do you own a gun? Her eyes widened, and barely audible "No" crept from her mouth. Get one, and learn to use it. Chapter 4. Levi squinted into the darkness before easing into the parking lot of the Portland Palace Motel and creeping to a stop in front of the office. The tail end of the rain shower spit a few final drops on his windshield. Distant rumbles threatened an angry return. A buzzing neon sign reflected its red vacancy light on the wet pavement, creating a devilish pathway to the door. The lone street light flickered above a group of 3 women clustered near the curb. Their meager apparel no match for the damp chill. He climbed out of the car, careful not to wake his mother. 3 hours of snoring had worn on him, but anything was better than her constant self-diagnosis of health problems. Imagined or otherwise. One of the women shivered at the street headed his direction, and he stared for a moment, frozen as she approached. A dozen rapid heartbeats passed before he jutted his jaw and exhaled a steamy breath across his face. A quick flip of his hand in her direction to shoo her off, and he turned toward the motel's office. A bell slammed against the glass door, hard enough to explain the crack zagging from the top, but no one greeted him. Noise poured from a back room, and he leaned over the counter for a better view. A small TV sat on a coffee table and blared an infomercial while 2 stockinged feet wiggled next to it. The chirpy woman on the screen rubbed a garter across the soles of her feet, raving about how smooth they felt. As a bonus, her husband loved her more. Levi's fingernails dug into his palms. He knocked on the countertop. Hello? No one responded. Hello? An overstated yawn echoed above the TV's volume, followed by a gaudy, wet snort. Yeah, I'm coming. The feet slid off the table, and the clerk shuffled to the front desk, never bothering to look at his customer. Red and black plaid shorts hung low on the man's waist, and a muscle shirt had abandoned its efforts to cover his belly. His ponytailed hair would have been better served obscuring the random tattoos and scars dotting his face and neck. A roach scurried from under the counter, and he stomped on the pest, using a magazine to scrape the bug parts off his sock. Men's Health, of course. Ugh. He yawned and peered at Levi through his half-closed eyes. By the hour or day? Actually, Levi said, I'll be here for a week. Double beds, please. The clerk glanced up and shrugged. Huh. $30 a day, cash up front, no refunds. Any fighting, I'll call the cops. And you're gone. No problem. Levi pulled the money from his wallet, allowing his fingertips to brush the wafer-thin fragments of white paper carefully tucked behind the 20s. Fill out this card, name and address, in case we need to find your next of kin. A little bit of motel humor there, huh? He tapped a foot and wrote the usual information on the form. Twice, stealing a glance at the clerk. Lots of roaches here. The man held the registration at arm's length. Astor Bellis. You a foreigner or something? He tossed the card in a file cabinet and chose a key from the pegboard. Room 12. I'm kind of busy, so if there's nothing else... Nope. That's it. Thanks. Levi returned to the car, his mother's snoring perceptible from several yards away. He idled halfway down the parking lot, bouncing from pothole to pothole. The two from his door lay on the ground, and the one hung cockeyed, lonely, and desperate. Lovely. Wake up, Mom. We're at the hotel. Let's get you inside. He helped her to the room and slipped off her shoes. You okay? She mumbled and crawled under the covers. I'll get your stuff. By the time he returned, his mother was snoring again. He sat on the end of his bed and looked around the room. Old TV, dusty dresser, nightstand, lamp shaped like a grizzly, and stained blue carpet. Should have brought that condemned sign. He slumped backward and stared at the ceiling, welcoming the exhaustion as it slinked into his body, filling first his arms and then chest, before finally skulking toward his feet. A peaceful sleep blanketed him, and he dreamed of the bare lamp growling in a low, steady rhythm. A few hours later, the hazy sunshine of an Oregon winter's morning pried open his eyelids. An apparently quart-sized hot water heater meant a 2-minute shower, though. From the looks of the tub, Levi didn't mind. He'd seen crime scenes cleaner than that bathroom. Several of them. The less time in there, the better. He dressed and tapped his mother's shoulder. Time to get up, Mom. Got a lot to do today. I thought we'd take a drive and check out the sights. His mother peeked from under the thin bedspread. I don't know, Cody. I'm tired and don't feel good. Really? He placed his hand on her forehead. You do feel kind of warm. Tell you what, I'll swing by the drugstore and pick you up aspirin and a few other things. You rest today. I'll bring you something to eat too. Such a sweet boy. You go out and enjoy yourself. You've got a big interview tomorrow, so relax. Don't worry about me. Oh, and are there any of those white donuts left? He switched on the TV. Yeah, Mom. I'll put them on the nightstand. Look, there's a Murder, She Wrote marathon on. You like that, don't you? I was so sad when she died. Such a good actress. Mom, she's not dead. Forget it. I won't be gone long. You get some rest. The Australian woman in the GPS directed him to the closest drugstore, where he purchased aspirin, cold medicine, and junk food. After topping off his gas tank, he returned to the motel, provisions in hand. His mother dozed again, and he sat across from her on his bed, watching her heavy breaths gradually slow before accelerating again. Each time, his pulse quickened, hope and fear rising within. The process repeated itself several times before he bent over, brushed her hair back, and kissed her forehead. Wake up, Mom. Grabbed everything you need, he said. It was slim pickings on the cold medicine, though. Any food? He shook his head and rustled through the bag. Sorry, they were out of pretty much everything. I did find, he jerked his hand out of the bag and showed off the treasure. Powdered mini donuts and dark chocolate M&Ms. Her chuckle morphed into a harsh, phlegmy cough. You spoil me, boy. He handed her 2 green capsules and twisted open a bottle of water. Take 2 of these now, and 2 more in 4 hours, if I'm not back. It'll take care of those symptoms, and help you sleep, too. I'll be fine. You go on and run around today. We might be living here soon, you know. Take us out a nice area of town. He kissed her on the cheek. Love you, Mom. Get some rest. See you in a little while. Levi cruised through downtown Portland until he found a cafe with a few wrought iron tables on the sidewalk. A chalkboard displayed a beaming sun sipping steaming coffee. A few people milled out front, chatting or sipping their drinks. An older couple held hands as 2 basset hounds sniffed the ground around their table, hoping to hit the crumb lottery. A cool breeze tossed puffy gray clouds across the sky, but the sun fought to spread its warmth on the customers. This would do. He parked, chose a table away from other patrons, and eased onto the frigid metal seat. After ordering coffee and a croissant, he opened his laptop, accessed the free Wi-Fi, and established a secure connection. He grinned at the familiar multicolored logo on his screen. Yes, Mom, I do have the Google on my computer. The waiter brought his order, and he sampled the roll. Buttery, flaky, and a touch of honey. Perfect. The coffee was a tad bland, a bit too mild for his taste, but not so much that it would ruin a pleasant day. A sporadic parade of people wandered past, window shopping, jogging, or socializing. People watching, one of his favorite things. Not as nice as people selecting, but still. A young woman hurried along, pushing a stroller the size of a small car. He couldn't tell if there was an actual baby in there or just a pair of eyes surrounded by blankets. He shook his head and returned to his laptop. The list of churches on his screen ran the gamut of organized religion. Methodist? Maybe. Baptist? Done that. Could do it again, though. Church of Christ? Catholic? Kind of in the mood for Baptist again. He filtered his search results and clicked on a link near the top of the page. Big sanctuary, 2 services, people in suits, others in shorts, not televised. Worth a look. He downed the last of his coffee and drove to the chosen church. Stopped a short distance away from the building. Red brick covered the facade, the white columns supporting the roof over the entryway. Large clear windows along the side allowed light to stream into the sanctuary. Stained glass would be so much prettier. The freshly paved and painted parking lot extended to the back of the church, and he caught whiffs of the new asphalt. 3 men worked on the landscaping, 2 raking leaves and the other spreading mulch, doing yard work in the dead of winter. Who'd have thought? On the outside, at least, this church was beautiful. A sign listed the hours for the services below the changeable message. Come and meet God here this Sunday. Oh, a special guest. Wonder if he'll be doing a book signing? Have to stop by tomorrow and see. He pulled away from the curb and headed to the next stop, a Walmart superstore. Experience taught him their choice of flowers was more than adequate, and the individualized attention of a florist was definitely to be avoided. He idled through the lot, pleased with crowds. People hustled in and out of the store, many of them returning unwanted Christmas gifts. He'd be the one person among hundreds. He found a spot near the back of the lot and wandered into the store. Customers with items to return ventured to the right, many toting crying children along with their bags. The employees there obviously lost their pasted smiles hours earlier, daring the hawkish supervisor to say something. The floral department was in the back, and he slalomed through the shoppers to the display. Poinsettias lined both sides of the aisle, on their third marked down with no takers. Pretty, but not sagging a bit and unwanted. Their competition, bouquets of roses and assorted spring flowers, stood proudly in the bright case, freshly misted and flaunting their wares. He brushed his fingers across a white daisy. The hairs on his arm rising as a wave of dizziness passed over him, so delicate and pure. Only one thing missing now, but today was Saturday. He'd have to wait until tomorrow to find her. The day of rest, Sunday morning church. The Lord would provide. Levi would accept. Obedience demanded it. He returned to the motel, observing the neighborhood's take on a darker persona as he drove. Run-down houses stood in stark contrast to the charming homes around the church. A few people sat on their porches, smoking, drinking, or simply staring. Women still gathered under the motel's streetlight, but he couldn't be sure whether they were the ones from the previous night. His mother sat in the chair by the window and smiled as he entered the room. White flecks dotted her lips, remnants of the powdered donuts. Angela Lansbury worked a new case on TV, determined to serve justice again. That woman never quits. Hi, Mom. Feeling better? Cody, look at those women out there. You know what they are, don't you? Yes, Mom, I do. I won't go near them, I promise. Such a good boy. We'll find the right girl for you. We just have to keep looking. She's out there somewhere. Warmth spread through his body, giving him a prickly sensation on his scalp. Sure she is. That's why I'm always on the lookout. You never know when you'll find her. Now, go get dressed. We'll grab dinner and be back here before dark. I want to get to bed early. Big day tomorrow. His mother groaned and pushed herself out of the chair, pausing to catch her breath. Sweetie, why are your interviews always on Sundays? It's such an odd day. Not sure, but I don't mind. People are nicer on weekends, more relaxed. Well, I hope so. Now, give me a few minutes to get ready. You watch and tell me if she solves the case. She planted her hands on her hips and looked out the window at the women huddled together beside the street. It's a pity, but they'll get what they deserve. He waited until she closed the bathroom door, then increased the TV volume and stared outside. A car stopped in front of the women, and one of them leaned into the passenger side window. Seconds later, she entered the vehicle, and the car drove away. A slow, steady stream of air flowed through his puckered lips, relieving the pain in his clenched jaw. Raspy coughing echoed through the bathroom door, distracting him. Show's over. He closed the curtain and sprawled on the bed, belly down, feet at the headboard, and a pillow propped under his chin. Half a donut rested on the nightstand, a powdered white smile among the dust. He popped the treat into his mouth, licked his fingers, and focused on the TV. Okay, Angela, let's see what you've got. The crowd at the early service skewed younger, as he expected. The sanctuary, older but obviously remodeled, had 3 sections plus a closed-off balcony. Levi sat at the end of a pew along the right aisle. Clusters of young adults gathered in their cliques around the church, but no one spoke to him. The old man who gave him a bulletin had at least nodded, so that counted for something. A group of women settled on a pew across the aisle, giggling and showing each other pictures on their phones. Based on their makeup, they'd spent hours standing in front of a mirror. All wore different variations of the same outfit. A dress that ended somewhere around their knees, dark leggings, and furry boots. If they had swords, they'd be female musketeers. The buzz in the sanctuary settled as the pastor took his seat. An older man shuffled to the pulpit, leaned into the microphone, and in a deep, shaky voice said, "Let us pray." The amen came at last, and Levi wasn't sure if he'd heard the opening prayer or the sermon. A man with spiky hair bounced up the steps to the stage and, with a quick, "Are y'all ready for worship?" jumped into a song. Levi didn't know the tune, but the guitars and drums were loud enough to drown him out anyway. The musketeers still focused on their phones, glancing up occasionally to make sure they weren't missing anything. Except the girl on the end. He tilted forward and, careful to keep his face focused on the choir, used his peripheral vision to watch the young woman. Her eyes were closed, and she swayed over so slightly in time with music. She held her hands in front of her, palms up, and her lips moved. But she wasn't singing. Tension eased from Levi's body, and he grabbed the back of the pew to steady himself. God is good. Eyes closed, head bowed. Thank you, Lord. 3 more unfamiliar songs later, The offering plate made its appointed rounds. On some rows, the platter moved like a game of hot potato. On others, it halted as mothers dug coins from their purses, training and bribing their children at the same time. Levi placed a folded $5 bill in the plate and handed it off to a deacon, who did his best not to glance at those who didn't donate. After a soloist performed a lilting version of How Great Thou Art, the pastor took his spot at the podium. He wore a dark suit, but no tie. Bet he puts a tie on for the second service. The preacher glared at the congregation for a good 10 seconds. Dramatic pause. Did they teach that in seminary? Finally, the minister cleared his throat and theatrically opened his Bible. Life, my friends, can be hard, he said. Look at the world around us. Wars, disease, famine, poverty, suffering is everywhere. But I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to be that way. That's not the world God designed for us. Folks, God wants better for you. He wants you to be happy. He wants you to be successful. Like a proud father watching over his children, God has promised to give you whatever you ask for. And we're done. Levi reached for the Bible in the back of the pew and thumbed through the crisp pages, searching for the right passage. Here we go. Acts. I will show him how much he must suffer for my name. Huh. I guess God didn't want him to be happy, or Stephen, or Job, or pretty much all the apostles, or even his own son. If anyone knew suffering, it was Jesus. He closed the Bible and contemplated the young woman again. Short brunette hair, dark-rimmed glasses, blue sweater over her gray dress. She chewed at the end of a pen for a moment, then wrote in her Bible. The preacher rambled about God's ways and his plans. Levi listened long enough to hear the minister repeat "prosper" several times. A few amens popped up around the sanctuary. Levi picked up his bulletin and read the events of the week. The pastor said something about having enough faith to ask for what we want. Levi scanned the rest of the bulletin. Oh, now he's talking about a mustard seed. Don't have it because you don't have enough faith. His nostrils flared, sweat beaded on his forehead, and he sat on his hands, struggling not to scream. Do you even know who God is? Maybe. He'll be here in time for the 11 o'clock service. Mercifully, the preacher finished, and the congregation sang a closing hymn. A few people stayed to chat, but most hurried from the building, their Sunday obligation checked off their to-do lists. The young woman stood, and Levi glanced away, breathing hard. She walked out of the church alone, her friends still enraptured by their phones. He followed her outside and strolled to his car, maintaining a respectable distance. She stopped 3 rows before him and climbed into a small yellow Subaru. Decals lined her car's bumper. No Jesus, no peace. Do you follow Jesus this close? Save the baby humans. Levi grinned and scratched his chest. It wasn't the baby humans she should be worried about. Subaru? Yes, Subaru. How are you doing today, Bella? He allowed several cars to exit ahead of him, always keeping his gaze on Miss Subaru. She drove until the roads and houses got smaller and then pulled into a driveway. Levi stopped at the corner, his hands clutching the steering wheel. His tongue darted across dry lips and the space between his shoulder blades grew tight. There were no other cars at the home. Miss Subabu hurried to the door, one hand holding her keys and the other pulling her sweater tightly around her torso. She dropped her keys on the porch and glanced his way when she bent to retrieve them. He froze, but there was no indication he'd been spotted. She went inside, and he relaxed, surveying the future sacrifice site. The small house had yellow siding with green shutters, flanking the front windows. The landscaping was sparse but maintained. Two huge evergreens anchored the front yard, swaying in the wind. Brown branches hung from one of the trees, threatening to tumble to the ground with each gust. An ugly black scar curved around the trunk, a reminder of its battle with lightning. Small bushes dotted the perimeter of the house like round tombstones in a black mulch bed. Dead brown ivy snaked up trellis on the home's side. It'd probably recover in the spring, unlike the home's owner. Movement drew his attention. An elderly woman toddled out of the house 2 doors down from Miss Subaru. She shuffled along the sidewalk, heading Levi's direction. He placed his phone to his ear and held an imaginary conversation with an old friend from Texas. As the woman passed his vehicle, he looked away. After a moment, he stared into his rearview mirror and waited until the old lady turned the corner. Time to go. His mother smiled, and when he opened the motel room door, I was starting to worry you'd get lost. Levi lowered the TV volume. Watching Matlock now? Oh, he's a wonderful actor. I was so sad when he died. Sure, Mom. How was your interview? Great. She was really friendly. There might be other candidates, but I don't know. It just seemed like we made some sort of connection. It's hard to explain. Well, I hope this one works out. She coughed hard and he placed his hand on her forehead. Still running a fever. Nonsense. I don't want to be cooped up in this room all day. Let's go get something to eat. Somewhere nice. Whatever you want, Mom. My treat. You get ready. I'm going to walk down to the ATM. I'll be right back. He marched to the office, sneaking up. Stick, go take these bitties. Oh, thank you. Whoop, just bumped my microphone. Thank you for the daily dab. Welcome, welcome. How you doing today, Honor? I hope you are the splendid. And happy Sunday to you as well. Oh, goodness. What are we reading today? We are reading Dead of Winter, which is the second book in the Jeremy Winter series. Last month we finished the first book in the series, Coming of Winter. Since I only do these once a month, the first 3, I still need to kind of edit down the last one, but all of them are up on my YouTube. So the first book is available there. So we are moving on to the second one, since that's what everybody voted for on the poll in the Discord. but it follows an FBI agent. What I like about these books is that they're... Yeah. What I like about these books is they're, they have chapters that are in Jeremy Winter, the main character's perspective, and they also have chapters that are in the antagonist's perspective, so whoever the bad guy is. And I really like reading the book from both perspectives. I think it gives a really interesting outlook on it. So instead of just getting one perspective, you get both. He marched to the office, sneaking a few peeks toward the street on his way. Once inside, he slid his card into the machine and gave the okay for the added fee. Criminals. He counted the money and eased the bills into his wallet, careful not to damage the treasure he kept there. Better check the balance. A couple of button presses later, the ATM spit out his receipt. $448,937.63. Sounds about right, give or take a few pennies. One of the ladies at the curb waved as he walked by. Levi ignored her, and she yelled something he couldn't understand. Fists clenched, he slowed. His chest slowly rose with each deep breath. The woman yelled again. No. He ran the rest of the way to his room. Ready, Mom? Almost. So, what did she say? Levi's mouth dried, and he avoided his mother's gaze. Who? The lady who interviewed you. Who do you think? He licked his lips and rubbed his right temple. Oh, I'll be seeing her again later this week. His finger dragged lines and loops through the dust on the nightstand. He stood back and admired his work. A lovely little flower. I'm really looking forward to getting to know her better. Chapter 5. Levi hadn't seen Miss Subaru for 3 days, and just as importantly, she hadn't seen him. A quick drive-by to confirm she came home for lunch daily was all he needed. Caring for his mother took up most of his time, but her naps gave him enough flexibility to work on his plan. Every detail had to be perfect. No more mistakes. The incident in Nashville couldn't be repeated. The Lord might not be so forgiving next time. Tomorrow would be a special day for Miss Subaru. She'd be going home. Today, final preparations. Maybe take Mom to Multnomah Falls if she was up to it. First, though, a stop for coffee and a chance to go over his schedule. Welcome to Jumpy Java. What'll it be? Levi half smiled at the barista, a cheery young woman. Good morning. Small coffee, please. Black. Bold choice. I'm sorry? Bold choice. See, because it's just a black coffee, a bold, get it? She widened her eyes and flipped both palms upward. He forced himself to maintain the grin. Sure, bold. Bet that's the first time you've told that one. She chuckled and shook her head. You're on to me. It's part of my regular rotation. The old guys who come in here like it, though. Not that you're older. Not that you're an old guy. I mean, well... She rolled her eyes and sighed. One black coffee coming right up. Levi studied her as she pumped the handle on the silver urn. Young, early 20s, and pretty much a goth sort of way. The dark makeup around her eyes and lips formed a stark contrast to her pale skin. Streaks of neon blue followed by jet black hair. A silver ring pierced her left eyebrow, and her shirt collar obscured most of a neck tattoo. What is that? A red-winged fairy with a black top hat, maybe? She slipped the cup into a cardboard sleeve and placed the drink on the counter. This one's on the house. It'll be our secret. Secrets? You have no idea. He mumbled his thanks and walked to a corner table and flipped open his laptop. Password? Daisy4. Need to remember to change that tomorrow. His virtual private network gave him a secure and almost untraceable connection to the internet. A search for thrift stores returned plenty of choices, and he ruled out the first few options. They were either too far away or specialized in vintage clothing. A Goodwill store was close and would be open by the time he finished at Walmart. He took a sip of coffee, and the steam escaped from the hole in the lid soaked his upper lip, nearly scalding him. He dabbed at it with the back of his hand. No blood. If I had hurt myself, he glared at the barista before turning back to his computer. A quick Google search for Cody Talbot provided no relevant results. Still anonymous. Serial killer provided several million hits, though no recent news stories. Disappointing. But that'll change soon enough. He logged off and scooped up his laptop and coffee. Shopping time. Goth Girl hollered at him. Come back soon. Maybe next time I can talk you into a macchiato or something. He turned around and nodded, half-heartedly waving when she tilted her head and grinned. His heart pounded and he struggled to control his breathing. Her wanton behavior, so innocent on the surface, hid an implied message. One he should ignore. I might take you up on that. Walmart was not far and not quite as crowded as earlier, though the hordes still moved through the aisles, eager to find stuff they couldn't live without. He stopped by the office supplies and picked up a cupboard, a clipboard, legal pad, and pens. The floral section came next. Exhausted poinsettias still pleaded for someone to take them, but their time was done. A time to be born and a time to die. A vase of yellow roses, green chrysanthemums, and white daisies met his requirements, and he placed the flowers in his basket. Water droplets trickled onto his hand as he secured the bouquet among the other items. He turned his wrist and watched the liquid dribble one away, then another. After a moment, he rubbed his hand across the slightly parted lips. His tongue scraped his skin and hot breath mingled with cold water. A young woman walked past. She stared at her shopping list, unaware of her vulnerability. She selected a loaf of wheat bread, and he bit his cheek, savoring the metallic tinge of blood as it soaked into his tongue. This very night, she turned into the produce section, passing within inches. A faint whiff of perfume wafted behind her, and he closed his eyes, shook his head. Not now. Not her. She wasn't chosen. Miss Subaru had the honor. God was clear about that, and he valued obedience above all else. For the plan to work, Levi could not stray. Not again. Not if he was going to point America back to the Lord. He reviewed the items in his cart. Should be everything he needed. Best not to linger too long. He moved to the cashier's checkout and drove to the next stop. The Goodwill store was empty of customers as Walmart was full. Rows of clothing filled most of the place, with stacks of old, dusty furniture toward the back. A few employees stood near the cash register, chatting, but after a cursory wave, they turned back to their conversation. Flannel shirts by the hundreds hung on racks near the front, and he found a red and black one with an L-shaped tear under the pocket. Someone had sewn the rip together using white thread, making it stand out like an old scar. Smelling faintly of cigarette smoke, and at least one size too large, the shirt was the perfect choice. Farther down the row, he selected a faded green t-shirt with a cartoon moose on the back. An assortment of hats hung at the end of an aisle, and he opted for a black baseball cap with a patch from the Rusty Rottweiler Brewing Company. A cardboard box held a mound of gloves, and Levi chose a pair of leather ones, stained with oil of some sort. A pair of jeans with a hole in the right knee and dirty brown steel-toed boots rounded out his new wardrobe. He paid, took his goodies out to the car, and pulled to the far side of the parking lot. Step by step, he went through his plan, trying to identify any possible threats. He knew he'd protect it, but God had given him a brain for a reason. Think, but obey. The sunshine streamed through the windshield, warming him from the chest up. The musty smell of the Goodwill clothing mingled with the leather scent of the gloves, dragging him into a drowsy daydream. He closed his eyes and recited verse after verse, each drilled into him from a young age. Scripture about love and forgiveness and sacrifice and wrath, especially wrath, God's anger. Only one way to quench the rage. For the life of a creature is in the blood, and I have given it to you to make atonement for yourselves on the altar. It is the blood that makes atonement for one's life. The Lord demanded satisfaction for America's sins, or the punishment would be swift. God used prophets to shake Israel from their disobedience, but that nation hadn't always heeded their warnings. Levi wouldn't let that happen to the United States. He was no prophet, just a dutiful servant. Sometimes the burden of being chosen was heavy, but not often. Not often at all. The girl, resting under his Texas home, had died to learn that lesson. He tried to explain. She was supposed to be with him. Had to be. He could protect her. It wasn't him she rejected. It was God. And when she ran, it was the Lord who demanded sacrifice. Atonement. How could he not obey his one true father? He pondered the flowers on the seat next to him. God's creation was beautiful. He selected a rose from the bouquet and held it at eye level, marveling at its fragility. Exquisite. His fist closed over the bloom, and he worked his fingers back and forth. Rose confetti floated to the floor. Beautiful, and so easily destroyed. The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. Taking away his appointed role. He squinted at his reflection in the rearview mirror. Dark brown hair draped low, making his brown eyes seem menacing. He scrunched his forehead and pressed his lips together in a scowl. Terrifying. The look lasted almost 3 seconds before a smirk ended the exercise. And he laughed at himself. An average-looking guy on a top-secret mission for an extraordinary god. Tomorrow, that duty would continue. Miss Subaru would probably thank him when he met her in heaven. Those flowers are beautiful, Cody. I'm pronouncing it Subaru on purpose. Just for you, Bella. Those flowers are beautiful, Cody, his mom said. Are they for me? He held up the vase and nodded. I thought they might brighten this place up a bit. Put them there by the TV so I can see them. That's perfect. He sat on the edge of his motel bed. I got a call today. They want to interview me again tomorrow. It said it might take most of the day. Wonderful. So don't worry about me. You just focus on getting that job. I'm focused, Mom. Now, feel up to getting some dinner later? She coughed, drawing into a fetal position as she did. I don't think so, honey. Another night's rest and I'll be over this. You go on. I'll be fine. He stretched out on the bed and kicked off his shoes. Nah. I think I'll hang out here and watch a movie with my best girl. An hour later, she was asleep. He channel surfed for a while, occasionally prying open the curtains to peer toward the street. The women were still there, shadows under the flickering light. Sometimes one would be gone, only to be back the next time he peeked. His legs ached, the muscles tight, and he wiped his hands repeatedly on the bed. They shouldn't be out there. Just after midnight, he glanced outside one last time, looked over at his mother, and crawled under the covers. He woke early the next morning, tired after a restless night. His mother's cough was worse, and the raspy hacking had interrupted his dreams. She still slept, and he placed his hand on her forehead. Burning up. She needed antibiotics, but taking her to a hospital was too risky. Too many questions and forms. Being a pharmacist did have its advantages, though. Knowing what drugs were needed and how to get them was just one perk. After a shower and shave, he checked the mirror. Big day. Got to look my best. For coffee. Coffee? Why had he thought that? Miss Subaru. Got to look my best for Miss Subaru. He grabbed 2 of the daisies and headed for the Jumpy Java coffee house. He sat in the car before going in, watching the barista through the windows. Same black goth makeup, a black top with some sort of sparkly Tim Burton-ish design, and a bright red necklace. She worked by herself again, running the register and preparing the drinks. The shop was more crowded than it had been yesterday, and several customers waited to place their order. An older man said something to her, and she laughed as she handed him his change. Her hand seemed to linger on his for an extra heartbeat, and the man dropped the change into the tip jar. The description of her is giving, I'm Ebony Raven, darkness. Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Although she seems a little too chipper to be goth. Unless she just likes the aesthetic and has like 0 personality to go along with it. She laughed as she handed him his change. Her hand seemed to linger on his for an extra heartbeat, and the man dropped the change into the tip jar. Rahab, the Jericho harlot who aided Israel and saved her family. The barista's red necklace radiated across the room, the scarlet cord in the book of Joshua. A sign to the Israelites. Was he supposed to save her? Was she supposed to save him? He paused until no one waited in line, got out of the car, and walked to the shop window. His warm breath fogged up the glass until she noticed him and waved. He tilted his head and smiled back. Slowly, deliberately, he traced a flower in the condensation on the window. She pointed at herself and mouthed, "Gurmeet." He nodded and walked into the toasty coffee house. She relaxed, with her elbows on the counter, chin resting on the back of her hands. "Well, hey there. Come back to try something different?" I'm not sure. I'm not really into that fancy stuff." "A simple guy, huh? Well then, let me be the one to broaden your horizons." His heart raced, and he struggled against the urge to run his tongue over suddenly dry lips. He paused before speaking, fearful his voice would crack. What do you suggest?" "It's chilly out this morning, so you'll want a hot drink. None of that iced stuff for you. Let's see. I know. We'll start with an Americano. Double shot." Americano? Relax. It's just espresso with hot water added. A bit stronger than your regular coffee, and a bolder taste, but nothing too far out there. Okay, sure. New things can be good. She glanced around before leaning closer and resting her hand on his arm. "It's on me. Focus. Great, thanks. By the way, my name's Kat." She extended her hand and Levi grasped it. Her palm was moist, warm, and inviting. He squeezed his free hand into a fist until she released him. "Thank you, Lord, for Rahab." "Nice to meet you, Kat. I'm Levi." "Levi? Like the jeans?" Yeah, like the jeans. "And you're Kat, like the, animal?" She grinned, showing crooked white teeth under her ebony-tinged lips. Short for Catherine. Never felt much like a Catherine, you know? Seems a little too high and mighty. You called it, Bella. Yeah, sort of fancy, I suppose. Cat's nicer. It fits you. The door opened and two middle-aged women paraded to the counter. Cat winked at him. No rest for the weary. He took his Americano and chose a seat in one of the leather chairs tucked away in a corner. From there, he could watch her without being obvious. He logged on and found dozens of companies that would gladly ship antibiotics to him, legally or otherwise. He peeked up and stared at Cat. Stared as Cat washed a stack of mugs in the sink. The rhythmic motion of her hands hypnotized him, allowed his mind to wander. She started to turn around, and he whipped his attention to the laptop, selected a pharmacy in Canada, and requested guaranteed overnight delivery to the motel. A hand touched his shoulder. "So, how is it?" He jerked in surprise and looked up at her. "Scared me a little. But the coffee's good. Really good. Nice recommendation." "Sorry I snuck up on you. Need some more?" Not right now. I've got to go to work. Don't want to be late. She put a hand on her hip, arched an arched an eyebrow, and squished her mouth to one side. Yeah? What do you do? Make jeans? I was gonna say, she arched her elbow. Levi closed his computer, stood, and forced himself to make eye contact. Good guess. I work for a tree cutting service. I've got a busy day today. So, maybe I'll see you tomorrow? We can move up the ladder to a straight espresso. I mean, if you're feeling really brave. He flexed his fingers and grinned. Sounds good. See you tomorrow. I'll try to be brave. Rahab. In the car, he relived the morning so far. Today would be a glorious, and he was already being rewarded. A new girl, though he didn't know what to do with her yet. Miss Subaru on the schedule, and Mom's medicines on the way. Still, something about the antibiotics bothered him. Fake name, charged to Mom's card, motel address, all the usual precautions. Except the private network. Traceable. A distraction. That's what Kat was. She disrupted his routine, forced him to make a mistake. If anyone went looking, they could track the medication order back to his coffee house. Not that it would make much difference, even if they did if they did show up here. Nothing and no one would point to him. He stared at Kat as she waited on another customer. That's not entirely accurate, is it? Oh, Rahab. What am I going to do with you? First things first. Don't want to keep the Lord waiting. He drove to a small city park and backed into a space near the restrooms. Another car was in the lot, but a flat rear tire and broken glass around the driver's door told its story. He stepped outside and leaned against his car. The wind gusted, died, gusted again. Brown leaves scratched across the ground. Empty swings clanked against each other in the abandoned playground. Beautiful day. He walked to the restroom and changed into his newly bought clothing. The burnished metal door provided a hazy reflection. The flannel shirt swallowed him, making his 6-foot frame appear even ganglier. Wiggling his toes and the boots proved difficult, but the jeans fit perfectly. The ball cap, lopsided to give a casual appearance, topped off his outfit, ready for the cover of GQ. Back at the car, he grabbed the black bag of supplies from the trunk and pitched it into the front passenger seat. Thistle says hi. She's been jumping on and off my lap all morning. Give her a pet from me. I am allergic to cats, so a pet by proxy is about as good as it's gonna get. Bluetooth pets, precisely. He grabbed the black bag of supplies from the trunk and pitched it into the front passenger seat. He did a full 360, scanning for any signs of activity. Satisfied, he sat behind the wheel and locked the doors. The daisies lay beside him, and he licked his fingertips before lifting one in each hand. Nearly identical, yet at the same time unique. Which one, Lord? He closed his eyes, waiting. His personal Urim and Thummim, used by Levite priests in the Old Testament to consult the Lord. No sound except the wind whistling past, chasing its own tail. His mouth dried, and he cleared his throat. His tongue poked his cheek. Left. The flower in his right hand fell to the floor, and Levi twirled the remaining one, peering at the blossom from every angle. Good choice. He counted the petals twice. Won't make that mistake again. 35. Another test, Lord? He plucked one petal and rolled it between two fingers before flicking the discard to the floor. The outside pocket of the bag held a rectangular black container, its paint worn around the edges. He bit his bottom lip, removed the box, and, barely breathing, posed the daisy in its felt lining. He replaced the lid and traced his fingers along the edges, caressed it, more precious than rubies. A cottony red bag tried to hide under a can of WD-40, but he recovered it and loosened the drawstring. A vial of propofol saw daylight for the first time since Nashville, and 2 new syringes joined it. He drew a small amount into the first needle and double-checked the quantity. The second one got a full load. Recap the needles, back in their bag, back in the duffel. Work time. He cruised past Miss Subaru's house and confirmed her car was in the driveway. Home for lunch. Right on schedule. A strip mall 2 blocks away provided the ideal parking spot, and he angled into a space near a sandwich shop. He retrieved a flashlight from the glove box, hunched forward, and slid it into the back of his jeans. The red drawstring sack went into his shirt pocket, its top peeking over the edge. His tongue darted across his lips. Itchy fingers grabbed garden pruners from the bag. Thick, curved blades, still sharp. Dark crimson stains on the edges. Nicks in several spots. Used to be so shiny. No matter. The rubber yellow handles served their purpose. A steady grip was important. He scanned his surroundings once more before stepping out of the vehicle and slipping the pruners into the back pocket of his jeans against the flashlight. His target was close now. No need to hurry. Several deep breaths to rein in his adrenaline. Slow, deliberate pace as he wandered down the street. Clipboard tucked under his left arm. Fake tree surgeon, genuine smile. The flashlight's metal casing scraped against the pruners as he walked, a rhythmic scratching urging him to join in. He sang, his voice cracking and low. When we walk with the Lord in the light of his word, what a glory he sheds on our way. While we do his good will, he abides with us still, and with all who will trust and obey. Chapter 6. Jeremy focused on the clock's fuzzy red numerals and waited for his mind to rouse itself from a fitful night. 2 minutes clicked by before he remembered he was back in Virginia. Home. His apartment was within a 30-minute commute to D.C. and an hour of Maggie's home in Milford. She'd already be on the road headed into the office. He'd hoped, retirement from the bureau would mean less travel, more stability. A chance to spend more time on things a bit more personal. Maggie and Rebecca. Starting his own as yet to be determined business, and resolving the one case that mattered most to him. None of that panned out. At least not yet. Retirement seemed a lot like a job. He shoved back the covers and sat up, swinging his feet onto the cold wooden floor. His morning ritual began as it always did, with the notion that he should exercise more, followed by a dismissal of the foolish idea. Life had caught up with him. Or maybe he just gave up trying to stay ahead. His 48th birthday barreled down, and short nights took their toll. He stretched his legs and worked his left foot back and forth for a good 3 minutes. Got to keep that leg happy. The biggest scar meandered from his outer thigh to inner ankle. Compliments of a grenade in Kuli Kish, Afghanistan. A smaller crimson divot above the knee marked the damage from the explosion at the Miller farm. They never figured out what hit him. Too much debris. Not that it made any difference. He grabbed his Glock from the bed holster, staggered to the kitchen, and flipped the switch on the coffee maker before heading to the bathroom. A flimsy disposable razor scraped his face while the shower heated. Clouds of steam billowed toward the clicking exhaust fan, partially fogging the mirror. He turned sideways and ran a hand from his chest to navel. A slight bulge began below his sternum, so he pressed harder. Perfectly flat. Looking good. Wouldn't hurt to drop a few, though. Don't want the turkey neck. He reached behind the shower liner, pivoted the handle to its coldest setting, took a deep breath, and stepped in. Then why would he turn on his shower to the hottest, or to a warm setting, waiting for it to heat up just to take a cold shower? That makes no sense to me, but okay. Just over an hour later... yeah, seems like a waste of water to me. Just over an hour later, Jeremy sipped stone-cold coffee and glanced at the conference room clock. The deputy director of the FBI, Matthew Bailey, had scheduled the meeting for 8:30, 10 minutes from now. But it would be at least 20 minutes before he arrived. Jeremy knew the drill. He'd sat through enough of these meetings when he was on the payroll. Bailey might really be busy. Then again, he might be setting the meeting's tone. Jeremy tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. Tried. Her long cold showers broke? No, bro's not okay. Bro is not okay. A few agents sat across from him, working on laptops and phones. They were polite enough, but conversation stayed to a minimum. An occasional head nod when someone arrived. Maybe a tap on the back as they moved to their seat. All of them worked multiple cases, and their load was too high to waste on idle chatter. At least when the DD would be present. Jeremy squirmed in his chair and worked his back into a more comfortable position. Then scrutinized the room, satisfied none of the agency's budget went toward decorating the area. A scratched plastic cover on the wall clock doubled as an echo chamber, elevating the tick-ticks into an irritating level. Just a hint of cigarette odor hung in the air, Whether from previous years or yesterday, he didn't know. The fake tree in the corner was droopy, dusty, and sad. A red and white name tag clutched one of the leaves, and Jeremy squinted to read the faded writing. "Hello, my name is Eeyore." 6 people could sit comfortably in the room, but at least 9 would attend. Officially, Jeremy was a guest, invited because of his experience. But he knew most of the attendees either personally or through reputation. The agents in the room treated him as one of their own. Once an agent, always an agent. His favorite FBI employee sat diagonally across the table from him. Maggie had chosen her seat intentionally. The relationship between Jeremy and her wasn't exactly a secret and violated no policies, but no sense in making her job more difficult. Stay completely professional. A quick smile was the only greeting she offered. Jeremy understood completely. The FBI was no different than any other workplace when it came to rumors. An irregular clicking bored into him, and he tracked the source to a young agent 2 seats away. Greg Simpson, 3 years with the agency, nicknamed Blondie because of his resemblance to that guy on all those food shows, needs to touch up his roots. Got a little black showing. Jeremy stared at the pen in Blondie's hands for a moment and cleared his throat. The clicking continued. He cleared his throat again, louder, and Agent Simpson glanced up with a "Who, me?" expression. Jeremy motioned toward the offending noise. The clicking accelerated. Guess who just moved to the top of my personal most wanted list? The scheduled start time arrived, and Jeremy opened a folder on his laptop. He knew the details by heart, but no sense taking chances. He wanted the data nearby. The DD was notorious for asking tough questions that had no answer. He stretched his hands and traced a circle around the marginally paler area on his ring finger. 8:35. Fresh coffee would be good, but he didn't want a chance of being out of the room when the DD showed up. The grittiness from the last sip would have to stay until they took a break. Director Bailey barged into the room and took his seat. A large man, his suit jacket remained unbuttoned, and Jeremy doubted the 2 sides of the coat had met each other for years. Sitting behind a desk tended to do that to even the best of agents. 8:38. Impressive. Everyone quieted and waited for permission to begin. The DD checked his phone, frowned, and placed it on the table. "Okay, people," he said. "I've got another meeting after this one, so let's get to it. Special aid... Mr. Winter, thank you for attending." "Yes, sir." Bailey glanced around the room. "Somebody get us up to speed." "As of now," Jeremy said, "we have an FBI agent." Ouch. Jeremy clenched his teeth and forced a smile. The director pointed at Blondie. "Simpson, recap the case." The man cleared his throat and shifted forward in his seat. "Yes, sir. So far, we have 4 known casualties, all female, ranging in age from 21 to 34. 1 victim is Caucasian, 2 African American, and 1 Hispanic. The attacks have taken place within the last year and a half, and gaps of anywhere from 3 weeks to 8 months between them. At each crime scene, flower petals are left. Always daisies, always white. Locations? Tampa, Phoenix, Norfolk, Birmingham, Binghamton, okay, in that order. A fifth possible assault occurred in Nashville nearly 3 weeks ago. We're almost positive it's connected, but the victim survived. Agent Simpson, the FBI does not deal with almost positives. Yes, sir. We have reason to believe the Nashville case is connected to the others. The first round of DNA results was inconclusive, so they're running them again. We'll have an answer within the week. Database results? No match to anyone in the system. The perpetrator doesn't attempt to clean the scene, but no fingerprints have been found at any of the sites. We're working under the presumption his prints are on file somewhere, and he knows it. The DD's phone vibrated, and Blondie waited while he read the message. Okay, go on. Yes, sir. In each incident, the victim was single and lived alone. Twice, the perpetrator broke into the home, and twice, the victim apparently let him inside. We have no indication the women knew their attacker. Once inside, he overpowers his target and injects her with propofol. All 4 victims had 2 needle marks in their left arms. The flower petals are possibly part of a ritual, or maybe just his signature. Where's he getting the propofol? Internet, probably. But we've got flags in the system for any thefts from hospitals and pharmacies. The director grunted. Other commonalities in the victims? All of them were active members of a church. By active, I mean Bailey's buzzing smartphone stopped Blondie again. Jeremy frowned at his empty coffee cup and waited for the meeting to continue. The DD muttered to himself and dropped his phone on the table. Sorry. Instant communication also means constant interruption. Blondie licked his lips. Yes, sir. As I was saying, the victims were active members of churches, meaning they were more involved than just going to a Sunday morning service. Bible studies, fellowships, that kind of thing. An agent across the table interrupted. All the same, denomination? No. 2 Methodists, Baptist, Church of Christ. The one in Nashville was also Baptist. A few agents typed notes on their laptops, and Jeremy stretched his legs under the table. None of this information was new to him. He'd seen the files, been over them several times. Of course, not everything ended up in the official reports. Agent Simpson finished his summary. In each of the 4 fatalities, the ring finger of the left hand was removed post-mortem. That's our biggest lead. He covers the fingers with plastic wrap and mails it to the Supreme Court. Always in a brown envelope, and always via regular mail. The victims' towns match up with the birthplaces of the judges. The order of the assaults is random, as best we can tell. It doesn't match up to the judges' ages, appointment dates, or anything else. Pattern holds. We have no reason to think it won't. He'll kill 5 more times. Bailey turned to Jeremy. Thoughts? Oh, he'll keep going all right. I'd be surprised if these are the only 4 he's killed. 2 clean. He's had practice. He'll hit the remaining 5 cities, if nothing else, to complete what he started, but he won't stop there. How can you be so sure? Blondie asked. Rookie question. He'd learn soon enough. Because, Jeremy said, they don't stop. Never. Slow down, maybe. Take a break, sometimes. But until they're caught or they die, they don't stop. Blondie frowned and scratched his cheek. So, we've still got Nashville, Sarasota, Chicago, Portland, and Brattleboro, Vermont. I'm thinking Nashville and Brattleboro are our best bets. There's a chance he could go after the same woman in Nashville. I'd like to put protective surveillance on her. The DD shook his head. I'd like to do it too, but it's not going to happen. Without more info than we've got now, I can't afford to lose an agent to babysitting duty. Get the local PD to increase their drive-bys. I'll reconsider if Nashville ends up being number 8 or 9 on his list. Blondie's lips stretched into a thin line. Yes, sir. Brattleboro is a small town. Strangers would be noticed, especially in churches. I'd like to... what I mean to say is it might be beneficial to question some of the pastors there. Maybe let them in on this a little. Out of the question, Bailey says. The last thing we need is for the media to get a hold of this. Churches under attack by a serial killer makes for a good story on the evening news and a huge headache for me. It's too early to create that kind of alarm. Anything from the interviews you've done? Nothing useful. No description. No one notices anything unusual, either at the victim's home or church. We've checked floral shops in the areas. No luck. No security cameras at the churches. The fluorescent light above Jeremy flickered, and 2 of the bulbs went dark. Winter, anything new from your trip to Nashville? Not much. Claire Lawson's moved. Changed her hairstyle, but she doesn't remember anything that might help. At this point, I'd recommend focusing on the flowers and the propofol. Figure out what the daisies mean to him and where he's getting the drugs. Why a daisy? Maggie asked. Why not a rose or a carnation? Good question, Jeremy said. We talked to a couple of florists. A daisy represents innocence. When you put that with the amputation of the ring finger, I think it's significant. The Latin name is Bellis perennius, which translates as pretty everlasting, according to the psych evaluation done by Dr. Andrews. Got to run errands. Thanks for story time. Oh, absolutely. You have a good rest of your day, and thank you for the daily dab. Sorry, Director Bailey said. Got to make a quick call. Let's take a break, people. 10 minutes. Be back on time. Jeremy stretched and headed for the break room. The coffee looked iffy. He touched the carafe? Fuck is a carafe? Or carafe? I'm not sure what that is. And jerked his hand back. Oh, still hot. He filled his cup partway and peered inside the pot. Coffee grounds with a hint of water. Enough to cover the bottom. You're going to make more, right? Oh, sure, he said, turning to face his accuser. Late 30s, reddish-brown hair, 5'6", 120, green eyes. Maggie looked great today. She casually brushed against him as she grabbed a bottled water from the refrigerator. Yeah, I bet. Heat flashed through his face. Honest, I was just about to brew a fresh pot. Uh-huh. I have a 6-year-old at home, remember? I know suspicious behavior when I see it. Based on my observations, I'd have to say that wasn't your intention. In fact, I'd be willing to testify you didn't fill your cup all the way for the sole purpose of not having to make another pot. No more questions without my lawyer present. I see. Well, I'm sure I could pry the information out of you somehow, but don't worry, your secret's safe with me. You'll never convince me to drink that stuff. Love the smell, hate the taste. She crinkled her nose to emphasize the point. He shrugged and grinned. More for the rest of us. You should know, though, it's a proven fact coffee has solved more cases than DNA and fingerprints combined. So, I suppose you're close to solving this case, then? On the record, I have every confidence the suspect will soon be in custody. Maggie smiled and tilted her head upward. And off the record, I don't have a clue. Her laugh was loud and deep. Let's get back before the boss returns. Got to be on time so we can watch him walk in 10 minutes late. Jeremy told himself not to look as she strolled back to the room. He failed after her first few steps. The rest of the coffee found its way into his cup, and he switched off the burner before returning to the meeting. The deputy director hurried in and took his seat, 3 minutes late. Dr. Andrews, I believe you're about to give us your thoughts before we were interrupted. Jeremy turned to the FBI profiler and waited while he shuffled through his notes. Retired from private practice, the bearded septuagenarian did consulting work on occasion. His profiles on serial killers ran the gamut for scarily specific to uselessly generic. Jeremy already knew which way this one was going. Yes, Dr. Andrews said. The religious commonality between the women makes this case a bit difficult to evaluate without background on the perpetrator. You have to figure out whether he was wronged by whichever god he serves, or whether he thinks he is doing God's will, or maybe it's both. Wonderful insight. Very useful. Jeremy glanced at Maggie and she rolled her eyes. In this case, the doctor continued, we have someone who pursues unmarried Christian females. When you consider the meaning of the daisy, it's possible he believes the women are innocents, perhaps even virgins. Conceivably, he thinks he is saving them from something, or someone. Jeremy said. Any guesses as to who or what he's saving them from? Well, there's the rub now. It's just as likely he has some sort of vendetta in mind. These women may be the bad guys. Thanks for clearing that up, Doc. Anything else that might help us, actually catch the guy? Several of the agents stifled a laugh, and Jeremy waited for a rebuke from the DD that never came. The profiler's face maintained its bored facade. In my professional opinion, you're looking for someone with a church background. He's seeking justice. For what or whom, I don't know. Everything else is your standard serial killer stuff. Single white male, lives alone, late 20s to late 40s, takes the fingers as his trophies. Maggie cleared her throat. Why would he get rid of his trophies? Don't serial killers keep them? Otherwise, they're not really trophies, right? Excellent question, the profiler said. It plays into his appeal for justice. He is offering his most valuable asset to a judge. He wants someone to listen to him. And there's no higher judge than in this country than the Supreme Court. What about God? She said. I'm not sure I understand. I mean, Dr. Andrews, if he's so religious, wouldn't God be the highest judge for him? He shrugged. Possibly. He may believe he's a messenger for his God and is simply following instructions. Or it could be that his God disappointed him, so he chooses human judges over deities. Or perhaps he doesn't believe in any God. He's giving the judges the finger, Blondie whispered. A glare from Director Bailey shut him down. Thank you, Dr. Andrews, the DD said. Very helpful. I wonder if we're ignoring the elephant in the room, though. Excuse me, sir? Jeremy asked. Terrorist? Muslim extremist targeting Christians? Jeremy paused a beat before answering. There is no indication these assaults are related to terrorism. One-on-one killings with little publicity don't fit that profile. Still, it's a possibility to keep in mind. Do that. Now, if there's nothing else, I think we'll... How many petals? Maggie asked. Interrupting the boss. Brave. Or suicidal. Jeremy scanned the file. Let's see. Anywhere from 26 to 40. There doesn't seem to be any relationship between the number of petals and the victim. And in Nashville? How many there? 33. Why? None of the others were odd numbers, were they? No. But we think he got scared off. He didn't have time to finish whatever he was doing. Maggie's lips moved while she counted on her fingers. Or he didn't have time and messed up. He couldn't finish because she loved him. Wait, what? The DD turned to Jeremy. I thought Lawson didn't know the attacker. Maggie leaned back, arms crossed. Oh, she probably doesn't, sir. Confident or cocky? Either way works. Jeremy bowed slightly toward her. Please continue, Agent Keeley. I have a daughter, Rebecca. And when she turned 6, we had a little party for... I'm sure that's all very nice, Director Bailey said, but get to the point. Yes, sir. My ex brought her some flowers. He held out a rose while she plucked off the petals one at a time. Jeremy's shoulders drooped and he swallowed hard. How had he missed that? He's playing a game, Maggie continued. She loves me. She loves me not. He couldn't kill the victim in Nashville because she loved him. He turned back to Jeremy. She only had one needle mark, right? Everyone else had 2. Yeah. So, he gives her enough to knock her out and does his thing. If she doesn't love him, he gives her a second shot. This one strong enough to kill her. Interesting theory, Bailey said, but if it's true, shouldn't we have more survivors? I mean, it seems to me at least one of the others would have ended up with an odd number of petals. Maggie raised her eyebrows and nodded toward Jeremy. I owe you. That would be true, sir, if he wasn't cheating. He counts before he goes in. Something went wrong in Nashville. He counted wrong. Or a petal fell off somewhere. Bailey checked his watch and scowled. I've got to go. Agent Keeley, take care of the meeting. You'll assume lead on this case. I want a recap in my email by the end of the day. Any questions? No, sir. You. The DD pointed at Jeremy. You're on this full-time, effective immediately. I want you training Agent Keeley. None of you, nice of you to ask if I'm available. Thank you, sir. Jeremy waited until Bailey walked out and glanced at Maggie. This was going better than he could. Just so we're clear, she said, I'm in charge. Chapter 7. Two days after the meeting, Jeremy sat in a Portland, Oregon home, pretending the plastic slipcover on the sofa didn't bother him. The homeowner, an elderly woman, had spent the last hour providing no useful information about the neighbor's murder. Jeremy had, however, learned the names of the local cats that had Dr. Oz, and that Dr. Oz could cure Alzheimer's disease. Maggie's phone rang, and she glanced at the number on the screen. Gotta take this. Mr. Winter, can you keep Mrs. Ellenberg company for a moment? Jeremy knew the look. Whatever the call was about, Maggie wanted to make sure she wasn't overheard. Sure, he said. Ma'am, would you show me again where you saw the man? Clear, certainly, dear. Let me get my coat. Jeremy escorted the older lady outside to the sidewalk. Now then, you said he came from that direction and walked directly to Mrs. Bishop's front door? Yes. I didn't recognize him. That's probably why I remember the day so clearly, Mr. Winter, ma'am. For the third time. He checked his notes. You saw a white male around 6 feet tall, somewhere between 180 and 210 pounds. He wore a baseball cap and old clothes, walked into Mrs. Bishop's yard, and looked at her trees. Then he knocked on her door, and that's the last you saw of him? Is that all correct? Yes, I think so, Mrs. Ellenberg said. But, you know, my memory isn't as good as it used to be. I understand. Is there anything else that might help us? Just terrible, isn't it? Oh, the police cars and sirens and news people. Such a shame about Nancy. Who could do such a thing? We're working on it, ma'am. Oh, we'll find him. Eventually. Maggie poked her head out the front door. Don't get too cold out there. We were just heading back in, weren't we, Mrs. Ellenberg? The woman shuffled up the walkway. Actually, dear, the weather's quite nice for Portland this time of year. It's good to have sunshine today. A hot cup of cocoa will warm you two right up. I appreciate the offer, Jeremy said, but I think it's best if we don't take up any more of your time today. Nonsense. I've got nothing but time. Cocoa and some cookies, I think. Maggie smiled. Sounds wonderful. The elderly lady hung her coat in the closet and headed for the kitchen. Now then, make yourselves comfortable. I'll be right back. Jeremy sank back onto the sofa. Who called? Maggie's lips turned down. Postal Inspection Service. They've got it. Nancy Bishop's ring finger. Return address? Sandy, Oregon. The Bureau's on their way to get the evidence now. Shouldn't take long to confirm it belongs to our victim. How far did this one get? So far, none of the fingers had made it anywhere close to the Supreme Court judges. Like all mail addressed to the federal government since 9/11. Intense screening caught virtually every possible threat. I'm going to get some rest and listen to this. I'll rewatch the VOD tomorrow. Okie dokie. You then go lay down. Kick your feet up. Take care of yourself. Whatever you have to do. But I hope you're doing well today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you. I thought it fit well with the ambiance that the background I found is giving. Between machines that sniffed the air for biological threats, X-rays, and heating all packages to kill anything that might be lurking inside, the USPS had become one of the worst ways to target a government official. Something their killer either didn't know or didn't care about. Oh, I'm sorry you're not feeling well today. Then absolutely go lay down and take care of yourself. Yeah, rest up, since I think you have your baking stream later today. So take a nap if you need one. Hello, Amity Jamity. How you doing today? I hope you are doing the splendid. All the way to DC, Maggie said. The woman who found it was pretty freaked out. Boring admin stuff day, so lovely to have some company. Oh, wonderful. Yes, absolutely. Let's see. We're almost at the 3-hour mark, so normally I do this for about 4 hours. The goal is to get to page 100. We'll see if I'm able to do that. See, we've got, because these chapters are a bit longer than the ones from the previous book. But if we don't, that's fine. 4 hours is typically the stream goal for one of these. I bet. A chill settled on Jeremy, and he wandered to the front windows. The sun's rays soaked him, though they did little to lift his mood. He didn't need confirmation to know whose finger it was. Who else could it belong to? Her body had been found by the police after a coworker called, concerned because Miss Bishop hadn't returned from lunch. As soon as the report hit the database, the Portland FBI office contacted Maggie. A crash from the kitchen echoed into the room. "Everything okay, Mrs. Ellenberg?" Maggie asked. "Yes, dear. I'm afraid I have dropped one of the cups." Maggie stood. "I'd better go help her. When we're done here, we'll head back to the office." Jeremy dropped onto the crinkly plastic encasing the couch and scrutinized the two women in the kitchen. Quite the couple. Maggie wore her usual dark suit and white shirt. Very FBI-ish. Mrs. Ellenberg had on a blue dress, now covered with a checkered apron and a pair of tennis shoes. Not very FBI-ish. He pulled out his phone to clear email. Maggie yelled from the kitchen, "Cocoa or coffee? Surprise me!" Whispered giggles trickled from the kitchen, and a moment later the pair returned to the living room. The elderly lady handed him a shaking coffee cup and saucer, doing her best to avoid sloshing any of the steamy brown liquid. Probably her best china. She toddled to an old rocking chair across from him and eased onto the plaid pillow covering the seat. Maggie positioned a plate of chocolate chip cookies on the end table and stood in the sunshine, her hands clasped behind her neck. Jeremy cleared his throat. Now, Mrs. Ellenberg, if we could just have a cookie," Maggie said. She made them herself. He peeked at his partner from the corner of his eye, hoping she received the message. We're going to have to set some ground rules. The toasty brown cookies looked fresh, and he chose a small one with a plethora of chips poking through the surface. The first bite sent shockwaves to his brain. Raisins. Why did it have to be raisins? Delicious, isn't it? Maggie said. Jeremy struggled to maintain a steady countenance. He nodded and worked his tongue across the gummy raisin bits stuck in his teeth. Yes, it's wonderful, but I really think we should be going. Nonsense, Maggie said. You've got time to finish your cookie. He bit his lip. She knows I have a gun, doesn't she? Maggie, we need to... She pointed to an oversized black and white photo on the mantel. Is that your husband, Miss Ellenberg? The old woman's face gained new wrinkles as she grinned broadly. Oh, yes. My George was really something. We were married for 47 years before the cancer took him last year. He was a wonderful man. Just a wonderful man. Jeremy wandered over and lifted the photo from its place of honor. Fingerprint smears dotted the glass, nearly blurring the image of the young couple standing in front of the same house. Yes, ma'am, I'm sure he was. He had his own automobile repair business. That man could have a car drive down the street and tell you what was wrong with it. He knew everything about them. Didn't matter what kind of vehicle. He could fix it. Good line of business to be in, Jeremy said. I didn't know anything about cars, Mrs. Ellenberg said. He tried to teach me, but it was useless. We used to laugh about it all the time. He was such a patient man. We'd take walks around the neighborhood and he'd test me, point at a car and ask me questions about it. Got so I knew every vehicle on the block. She stared off into space, head tilted and mouth open. Jeremy looked at Maggie and tapped his watch. She held up her index finger. A car, the old woman said. It's not usually there. Jeremy leaned forward. A car? There was a car parked at the end of the street a few days before Nancy was killed. It's not from around here. I recognize most of the neighborhood cars. Of course, I suppose some would have bought a new one, but I haven't seen it again. Isn't it funny how things just pop into your mind, Mr. Winter? Jeremy said. Do you remember anything about the car? How many doors? What color? Anything that might help us? Mrs. Ellenberg smoothed her apron. You don't live with an automobile repairman for all those years and not learn a few things. Even me. Maggie scooted to the edge of her seat. Can you describe the vehicle you saw? The woman stared blankly, forehead scrunched and lips pouted, and gestured a path along the sidewalk. A sedan. Malibu, maybe. With beige paint. Oh, and the car had a Texas plate on it. Jeremy scribbled some notes before continuing. That's excellent, Mrs. Ellenberg. Excellent. Was there anyone in the car? Any dents, bumper stickers, anything like that? I'm sorry, but I didn't pay that much attention. I was out for my walk when I noticed the license plate wasn't Oregon. It was red, white, and blue. Just lovely. But I didn't think anything about it. This is such a quiet neighborhood. At least, it used to be. Yes, ma'am. If I showed you some pictures, do you think you might be able to narrow down the car's year? He typed on his smartphone. I'd be happy to try. She moved to the sofa and sat next to him. The pictures are kind of small, but if you see one that looks like a possibility, I can enlarge it, he said. You just swipe your finger across the screen to go to the next picture. He handed her the phone and demonstrated the technique. The older woman squinted for several seconds before moving to the next picture. On the fourth photo, she paused. It was like this. But the front grille was smaller, and it didn't have this bar running through it. Jeremy looked at the photo and typed in new information. That is a 2005 model. Let's try the years around then. Moments later, a new picture popped on the screen. How about this one? Yes, I think so, Mrs. Ellenberg said. That looks like the one I saw. A 2006 Malibu. Are you sure? She chuckled. Mr. Winter, at my age, I'm not sure of anything. But I believe that's the car that was parked on the street. Jeremy nodded, stood, and handed her his business card. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your time, Maggie said. You've been very helpful. Please call if you think of anything else, day or night. Oh, I will, dear. I hope you catch whoever did this, and soon. Feel free to stop by anytime you're out this way. I don't get many visitors. Yes, ma'am, Jeremy said. And thank you for the coffee and cookie. Oh, my pleasure. Agent Keeley, I wonder if you'd help me with something in the kitchen before you go. Of course. Jeremy, do you mind warming up the car? After a few minutes, Maggie hustled out the front door and slid into the vehicle. The radio blasted a Miranda Lambert song about a woman, a shotgun, and her abusive ex. She said, you know, there's more kinds of music than just country, right? He turned the volume down a notch. No appreciation for true art. What did she want? A present for you. Maggie handed him a brown paper sack. He opened the bag and saw at least half a dozen cookies. Maggie, I don't like raisins. Yeah, I figured that out. I wish I had a picture of you eating the one in the house. When you took the first bite, priceless. Glad you were amused. Nice work in there, by the way. Just doing my job, she said. You know, it wouldn't hurt you to be less formal sometimes. Loosen up a bit. It helps people not feel so intimidated. They remember things easier when they're not scared. Just doing my job, she said. Loosen up a bit, just remember things easier. I'm not trying to scare people. And that was my soft side in there. I've done worse. You can do better. But I guess it's like that old saying. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't teach him new tricks. Make him drink. Make who drink? Never mind. Let's head back to the office. I want to get started on the database search for that vehicle. As they pulled away, Jeremy focused on the crime scene tape in Nancy Bishop's yard. The small house would be quaint, were it not for the yellow and black stripes draped everywhere. He stopped for a moment and tapped his finger on the steering wheel. 5 down, Maggie said. Yeah. I think he'll go after the girl in Nashville again. My gut tells me he will, but I don't know why. We're missing something, Maggie. Serial killers start with a pattern and a purpose. Sure, they evolve, change things up, even switch motives. Statistically speaking, no matter why they started, most of them end up killing for the sole reason they enjoy it. But this guy, there's something I don't understand. He does have a pattern. Christian girls, all single, living alone. We know the who. We just need to figure out the why. Jeremy scratched his cheek and rested an elbow on the armrest. But why does he send his trophies to the Supreme Court? It doesn't make sense no matter how deluded you are. The whole point of a trophy is to remind them, to remember what happened. Let them relive the moment. Even psychopaths have rules and habits. People are different. This guy makes his own rules. It happens. Makes our job a little tougher, that's all. I don't buy it. People aren't that different. Sure, this guy's got something screwed up in his head, but basically people are the same. They like their routines. They fit in a group. And the serial killer group doesn't give away their trophies. Except for this guy. He shook his head. We're going back to Nancy Bishop's home. He took something else. We have to figure out what it is. We've been through the house twice already. Nothing missing according to her friends, all of whom have been cleared, I might add. But hey, you want to look again? Then let's look again. Jeremy stepped out of the vehicle. We have to find it. An hour and a half later, Maggie held her palms out and sighed. Nothing, he said. I don't know what I'm looking for or what I'm not looking for. How are we supposed to find something that's not here? Jeremy stood in the center of the small living room. The house was neat, at least for one kept by a young single woman. No ransacking, no mess, other than a small bloodstain on the wood floor. Even that wasn't noticeable unless you knew where to look. He shuffled through papers, lying on a wooden roll-top desk, finding nothing of interest. A metal coffee table held a couple of magazines and a stack of tile coasters. Miss Bishop obviously had eclectic tastes. The walls were an off-red color with a splash of yellow in a few places. No paintings anywhere, but many photographs. Oceans and mountains, cities and huts, sunrises and thunderstorms, and people. Lots of photos of people. Is one of them the killer? What are you thinking? Maggie asked. Why did he choose her? What was different? I mean, looking around her home, other than her taste in decorating, everything seems normal. But something has to be different. Our guy picks his targets for a reason. He's not random. Are you sure about that? There's nothing to indicate that he chooses them based on anything other than the fact that they go to church. No, they mean something to him. He looked around again. Crosses. What? No crosses on the wall. So? Don't religious people put crosses on their walls? Maybe that's what he's taking. Yeah, maybe. Maggie said, but look at how everything's organized. There are no gaps unless the guy redecorated. Where would you hang a cross? She walked around the room and checked the walls, plus no nail holes. Okay, something else then. Something religious. What would be important to him and her? Jeremy, did you ever go to church? He stepped back and crossed his arms. My mom used to take me way back when I was a kid, but I don't see how. Mom takes Rebecca every Sunday, and when you're not visiting, I go with them. There's a nice church not too far from our home. If the weather's nice, we walk. And when I do go, I always bring my Bible. Habit from when Mom used to take me when I was a little girl. Don't really need to carry it since they've put everything on the screen now, but I still do. It's, I don't know, comforting, maybe? Comforting. Scary, more like it. Her Bible's not missing. It's on the nightstand by her bed. Maggie headed for the bedroom, and Jeremy tagged along behind her. She picked up the Bible, a red leather edition with Nancy Bishop inscribed in gold on the cover. She flipped open the book and read the dedication page. To Nancy, on your 16th birthday. Proverbs 31:10. With all my love, Mom. Maggie thumbed through the pages quickly. She's written notes all through this. Lots of stuff is highlighted too. Some pages are torn and dog-eared. She used this a lot. Jeremy struggled. Sentimental value? Plus, you're missing the point. It's still here. Killers don't leave trophies behind. The Bible meant something to her. More than a trinket or a gift, she used it, wrote in it, and read it. I don't do that. I'm not following. She patted the cover of the book. I carry mine when I go to church. A lot of people do, but I don't write in mine. If it weren't for the dust, you'd think my Bible was brand new. Half the pages still stick together. Nancy Bishop was serious about hers. He rubbed a hand over his chest. So she bought into religion. Good for her. Maggie's face flushed, and she cleared her throat. It's not about buying into religion. It's about... Never mind. Listen, Maggie. I don't mean anything by it. Sorry. Didn't realize I was stepping on any toes. She sighed and rubbed her hand over the grainy leather. I overreacted. It's not that I'm religious, but I do think there's something to all this, you know? And obviously so did the victim. If this Bible was so important to her, maybe it's why he chose her. Maybe it's the thing that separates his victims from the others. But he wouldn't know she did all the writing and stuff unless he saw her do it. Which means he had to be at the church. That's no surprise. But we did our interviews, and nobody remembers anything out of the ordinary. Maggie kept flipping the pages, searching for anything that might offer a clue. Jeremy jingled the change in his pocket while he watched and waited. The rustling of the wafer-thin paper brought back buried memories. Sitting in a pew, hundreds of Bibles being used at the same time. Why did they make the pages so thin anyway? Maggie looked at him. Because they can? Maybe so it won't be so heavy? I think Bibles would work better if they were heavier. You know, when people beat you over the head with it. Maggie ignored his attempted humor. Jeremy? She held the open Bible and pointed to the top. This page is torn. And the name of the book is missing. Judges. That can't be a coincidence. Jeremy scrubbed his hand across his face. Maybe not. Easy enough to find out, though. Bag it and bring it. We'll head back to the office. You dig into that and see if the other victims' Bibles are missing the same thing. I'll start working the automobile database. I bet there's more than a few 2006 beige Malibus floating around. 2 decent leads in one day. Maybe we're actually making progress. Progress. A woman dies, and he gets clues. 5 dead so far. Maybe more. Progress came at a very steep. Chapter 8. It got easier every time. Practice makes perfect. Levi had provided a low estimate for trimming Mrs. Subaru's damaged tree. Told her business was slow and he needed the work. She'd hesitated, but when he dropped the price another $50, she jumped. The true cost turned out to be much higher. As he explained the details, she focused on the numbers written on his legal pad, not the syringe in his other hand. No struggle, only a look of confusion. Or maybe fear. It was hard to tell. That was the downside of the propofol. Really no way to know what the girl thought as she drifted off to eternal sleep. He grabbed her as she turned to run and stepped inside her home, closing the door with his foot. She slumped as the drug took effect, and he eased her to the floor. The daisy played its part perfectly, and the second dose of propofol finished the job. Miss Subaru kept a nice home, nothing worse than seeing the mess that some of the girls lived in. It is so hard to make up a bed once in a while. Put your shoes in the closet. He wandered through the house to give her heart plenty of time to stop. Let the blood settle for a bit. Made less of a mess when he snipped off her finger. Learned that the hard way. Lots of photos of her home. Decent furniture, none of that metal and fake wood IKEA stuff. Cold pizza in the fridge. Lots of veggies too. Organic milk? Isn't all milk organic? At least the stuff that comes from cows. Clean bathroom. Still a lot of boxes piled in the guest room. Though, moving somewhere or just moved here? Overall, a nice, tidy, cozy home. Perfect spot for a young woman with her whole life behind her. Good balance to everything. He paused before stepping into her bedroom and traced a finger down the door jamb. She slept here. His heart raced and he swallowed hard before moving into the room. A queen-size bed, wooden dresser, and full-length floor mirror. Matching nightshades with lamps. There. The Bible, right beside her bed. Last thing she sees every night? First thing in the morning? Good girl. He took his reward, slipped it beside the others in his wallet, and returned to her body. No pulse. He checked her pupils, slightly dilated as the muscles of the iris relaxed. Skin still warm, but that changed quickly. Yep. By now, Miss Subaru was sitting at her feast in heaven. Her body perfect. The empty shell before him no longer connected to whoever or whatever she used to be. He pulled the garden pruners from his pocket. Good that she had hardwood floors. Not much work for the crime scene cleanup crew. Barely worth their time to stop by. A little spray of something, a quick wipe with a rag, move on to the next project. A quick snip later, he still closed his eyes at the last nanosecond, and her finger was in the Ziploc quart-sized bag. A smaller sandwich bag could have been plenty big, but those didn't have the slider, and trying to seal them was a frustration he didn't need. The bubble wrap and envelope were back at the motel, and he'd prep everything for shipment there. 2 days since he'd sent Miss Subaru home. Life was good, and in another day or two, he would decide where to go next. The Portland Palace Motel remained safe, at least for now. And besides, he'd already paid through the end of the week. No sense wasting money. The evening news covered the breaking story the night of her homegoing. The police spokeswoman swore her sternest expression. The co-workers sniffled and wiped their eyes on cue, all so heart-wrenching to those who didn't understand her sacrifice. His sacrifice. Last night, the pretty co-anchor smiled as she updated the story. A young woman tragically killed in her home. Exterior shot of the house draped in crime scene tape. More details as they become available. 10 seconds of coverage, then a 2-minute account of Dachshund races somewhere in Minnesota. No update on this morning's news. The story was as dead as Nancy Bishop. That problem needed to be rectified. His mission demanded the sacrifices stay front and center. People wouldn't wake up if they didn't get the message. Perhaps he'd underestimated the public's apathy toward killings. Not their fault, though. They didn't see the big picture. Not yet. Law enforcement's hesitation to provide information to the press infuriated him. How hard could it be to tie the murders together? The FBI was worthless. Sure, they'd probably made the connection, but failing to warn the public? Inexcusable. He tapped his finger on his lips and stared at his mother. She'd been restless all night, and the fever clung to her. Beads of sweat covered her face in spite of the crisp air pumping from the rattling air conditioner. The antibiotics didn't help. He rubbed the back of his neck and frowned. "How are you feeling this morning?" he said. She opened her eyes and looked past him. "Is he still here, honey?" "Who, Mom? Is who still here?" "Your father, of course. He was just in here. Such a gentleman." He sighed and shook his head. "Mom, nobody's been here. It's only you and me. Like always." Her eyes closed and her breathing slowed. She needed to go to the hospital, but that brought too many obstacles. Too many questions. If he didn't take her, she wouldn't live much longer. "The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Levi kissed her forehead. "Rest up, Mom. I'll be back in a little while. Got some thinking to do." A hazy sun teased its warmth through the mid-morning cloud cover. Levi shoved his hands into his jacket pocket and hustled into the coffee shop. There was only one other customer, an older man reading the paper. He wore a heavy brown coat with the collar turned up. A crooked walking stick rested against the chair beside him, and a black beret balanced atop his bald head. A beret? Have some dignity, man. Kat brushed her palms on her apron and beamed when she saw him. Well, howdy, stranger. Isn't that what y'all say down in Texas? Levi stopped just inside the door. Texas? I saw your car's license plate. You know, I've always wanted to ask someone, is it true? Is what true? She arched her eyebrows slightly. Is everything bigger in Texas? Oh, Rahab. Levi laughed. How about something new today? What's this latte thing I've heard so much about? Kat wrinkled her nose. Latte, huh? Living dangerously, aren't we? Well, I can't tell you. It's a top secret mix of ingredients. He rubbed his chin and wrinkled his eyebrows. Top secret? I'm intrigued. She motioned for him to come closer, and when he arrived at the counter, she whispered, See? We make espresso. Pour in steamed milk, then we triple the price. Outrageous, Levi said a bit too loudly. Beret Man glanced in their direction, scowled, and returned to his paper. But I'll cut you a deal, Kat said. For you, I'll only double the price. Well, in that case, I'll take 2, if you'll have one with me. She leaned back and placed her hands on her hips, unable to conceal a grin. Why, Levi, are you asking me out on a date? He swallowed hard as pinpricks of heat scattered across his face. Can't really afford to take you on a date, what with the price of lattes and all. But I could use some company this morning, at least until you get another customer. There won't be much business until after lunch. This place is dead once the morning rush is over. Honestly, I don't know how much longer the owner will be able to hang on. But it's no big deal. It's not like I make a lot of money working here. No benefits either. So, why stay? There must be a zillion coffee shops in Portland. You could easily find another job. She placed both elbows on the counter and propped her head in her hands. I get to meet some pretty nice people here. He gestured toward the other customer. Let me know if any of them show up. In the meantime, I'll be over in that corner table. Shouldn't be too hard to spot me. I'll be the guy without the beret. She chuckled and bit her bottom lip. Give me a couple of minutes and I'll be right there. I need to clean up a few things before I can take a break. Want your latte now or later? Now, if it's not too much trouble. I've got some thinking to do, and coffee helps. Ooh, sounds serious. I'll move you to the front of the line then. Levi laughed and steadied himself against the counter as euphoria flooded his brain. Been a long time. I'd appreciate that. See you in a minute. He worked his fingers as he watched her go about the business of preparing his drink. She pulled a large ceramic mug from under the counter and poured the espresso into it. The steamed milk was next, and Kat drizzled it slowly, jiggling her hand back and forth. She grabbed a biscotti from a jar on the counter, placed the hard cookie just so on the saucer next to the mug, and brought the order to him. Hope you like it. I'll be back in a few minutes. If you need any help with that thinking you've got to do, let me know. I've been told I'm a fairly smart girl. She winked and bounced back to the counter. Levi nodded and picked up the mug, eyeing the design in the latte. A milky heart on a suntanned background. That could mean a lot of things. She liked him, that was obvious, but he didn't need complications, distractions. Unless she was a sign? Rahab had saved the Israelite spies by hiding them. Was she there to help him? Or maybe God was offering him a reward? It'd be nice to slow down, take a break from the travel, but the task wasn't finished. He looked at the heart again, now barely recognizable, a pale imitation of what it once was. Like Mom. He lowered his face over the latte and let the steam surround him. Wet heat soaked into his pores as the mist covered him, calmed him, smothered him. The sound of a breaking cup startled him, and he jerked his head toward Kat. She smiled and waved. "Whoops! I guess I'll be another minute here. Still doing your thinking?" He slumped against the chair's back and blew out a long, slow breath. "Actually, I've got it figured out. Your latte did the trick. Works every time." Kat grabbed a broom and began sweeping up the glass shards. "Listen, can I take a rain check on our chat this morning? Got something I need to take care of." Sure, I guess." Her shoulders drooped and she kept her eyes toward the floor. "Tomorrow, maybe?" "Absolutely," he said. "Count on it." After a stop at Walmart, he went into his room and perched on the edge of the bed. His mother still slept, slow breathing with fits of coughing, stale air, sickness, and sweat-soaked sheets. The stench of death in waiting. He watched her for a few moments, sporadic jerks, low moans. Was she dreaming? "Mom?" No movement. "Mom, wake up." Still nothing. He reached over and shook her. "Mom, time to get up." Her breathing accelerated and she moved a hand to her face. "Cody, is that you?" Her eyes remained closed. "Yeah, Mom, it's me." "How are you feeling? You look a little better today. The medicine must be working." He'd have to remember to ask forgiveness for lying. "Thank you, Lord, that your mercies are new every day." Another bout of her hacking cough ended in a whisper. "Baby, I'm so tired. Maybe we should go to the hospital." Dirty hair stuck to her forehead like thin gray scars. He traced a finger across her temple. "Filthy. Look, Mom, I brought you something to help you feel better." She opened her right eye slightly and turned her head. "Oh, honey, is that a flower? So sweet. Such a good boy." Levi leaned over and placed the daisy on her pillow. Its petals brushed against her cheek. "I thought of you when I saw it." "Mom?" Her breathing was faster now. She stirred slightly. The sheet fell off her left shoulder. The pink nightgown he'd given her for Christmas. How many years ago? Collarbone, stretched pasty skin, splotches of red. Gently, Levi replaced the sheet over her shoulder. "Thank you, honey." He kissed her on the cheek. "Sure, Mom. Go back to sleep." Levi fluffed his pillow, stood beside the bed for a half second, then leaned over his mother. Face flushed, running a fever. He moved to the air conditioner and held the pillow over it. There. Good and cold. It'll feel better on her face. As he returned to his mother, the hum of the air conditioner took on a rhythm of its own, inviting him to sing along. Let us be true and faithful, trusting, serving every day. Just one glimpse of him in glory will the toils of life repay. He pushed harder. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. He lifted the pillow and looked at the daisy, broken and crushed. A few petals held fast to the pillowcase, but most stuck to her cheek, covered in innocence. How ironic. There, all better. Tell you what, I'm gonna take a nap, and then we're going to go check out Mount Hood. Haven't been up that way yet, but I'll bet we can find somewhere you'll be comfortable. Don't want to rush you, but you know how it is. Gotta hit the road soon. The Lord's work is never done. He fell onto his bed and buried his face in the pillow. The scent of the flower petals mixed with old... What? Just old. He inhaled deeply and held it, savoring the odor, a pleasing aroma before the Lord. Good night, Mom. Sleep well. Oh, that's just nasty. I can't wait to read about this guy's death. He's... Ugh. What a sick fuck. Ugh. Chapter 9. The FBI office in Portland was near the runways of the city's airport, and Jeremy's headache screamed for attention as another flight departed. The harsh lighting in the small office wasn't helping matters. Didn't matter which way he tilted the monitor. The glare burrowed its way from the screen to his brain. At least the building was warm. He leaned back in the chair and looked out the windows at the heavy gray clouds hanging low in the sky. The radio said the temperature hovered in the mid-40s, but it felt more like low teens to him. The agents based here said on a clear day you could see Mount Hood. So far, he had been lucky to see the buildings across the street. "What's that song?" Maggie asked. He ran a hand through his hair. Huh? What song? The one you were humming. You do that a lot, you know. Something I heard on the radio, I guess. It helps me think. Yeah, so what was it? Let me guess. Country. That's a given. Beer, tractor, women, all of the above. He frowned and shook his head. Just a song I've heard a few times. No sense in letting her know she was right. Uh-huh. If you don't want to tell me, just say so. Maggie laid a folder on the table next to his laptop, opened it, and pointed to her report. Confirmed. All the victims had torn Bibles. Always Judges, but not always the same chapters. She was inches from him, and Jeremy forced himself to keep his eyes on the folder. He swallowed and ran the back of his hand across his lips. Okay, so we run with the theory that he takes those as his trophy. Makes sense. That's the link between the Supreme Court and his victims. Maggie straightened up, gazing off into space. She scrunched her mouth and tapped her lips with an index finger. Unless, he said, you have another theory? No, not yet anyway. Seems a little tenuous, though. Yeah, they're probably his trophies, but There's got to be more to it. I mean, I don't care how whacked you are. You don't cut off a finger and mail it just because you're bored. There's more to this guy. Sure there is, but at this point, I'll take whatever we get. How about the girl in Nashville, Claire Lawson? Her Bible okay? I don't know yet. We've got an agent swinging by her place later today. If I had to guess, our guy didn't touch Lawson's. No point. At least while she's still alive. Her cell phone rang, and she looked at the caller ID. Rebecca. Be right back. Jeremy turned his attention to the monitor. The Texas Department of Motor Vehicles listed over 400 2006 Malibus registered in the state. Filtering by color was nearly impossible. There appeared to be no standardized method of inputting the data. Some dealers submitted the colors by their official names, others by whatever they happened to feel like using that day. His target could be brown, beige, tan, or any other shade of dirt. He exported the file to a spreadsheet and sorted by color, then eliminated the obvious no matches. 97 vehicles remained on the list: brown, sandstone, tan, yellow, beige. Maggie re-entered the room. Find anything? He shrugged. Almost 100 cars on the list. Of course, he stole the license plate. We might not even be looking in the right state. But if there's a way to whittle the number down, I'm not seeing it. I'll fire the listing off to our guys in Texas. Maybe they can do some drive-bys and we can cross a few off. The car could have been repainted. Yeah, I know. But we have to start somewhere. How's Rebecca? Fine. Just wanted to talk. Seems the neighbor boys pushed her down, and she got a little upset. You going to call the kids' parents? She sighed and smiled before sitting in front of her laptop. Not likely. Apparently, she pushed him back, and then sat on him and pulled his ears. I'll be lucky if they don't call me. My mom said she's going to take her down to apologize to the boy after a nap. Your mom or Rebecca? What? Who's taking the nap? Oh, both, I'm sure. Mom always says a good nap is the best thing since sliced cheese. He grinned, his headache slinking to the far edges of his brain. Maggie cocked an eyebrow. What's so funny? Your ability to turn a phrase is, endearing? I think you meant bread instead of cheese. She scratched her cheek and shook her head. Yeah, you ever stop to think that maybe it's you that got it wrong? You know, sometimes, Jeremy... Did you see this? Huh? See what? She turned her computer screen and scooted her chair closer to his. The breaking news scrolled across the top of the network's website. Senator Diane Morgan's DPA, I think that means maybe Democrat Pennsylvania? Maybe? Announces she will seek the nomination for President of the United States. A chill ran along his spine. Well, I guess we know what that means. Our friend'll be calling soon. You don't know that. Maybe I know him, Maggie. Kronfeld's not the type to let go of things. And now that his wife's running for president, she rubbed his arm. Not a word from him since you got out of the hospital. Maybe the senator reined him in. When you met with her, she seemed agreeable, right? Not sure I'd put it that way. More like she didn't want to know what I was talking about, but would handle it. Plausible deniability. She knows her war hero husband did some things in Afghanistan that need to stay buried. The question now is whether she thinks I'll still keep my mouth shut. Even if I do, Kronfeld's not going to leave any loose ends. Well, made that sound ominous enough. He clasped his hands behind his neck and stared at the ceiling. He's dangerous. Not that he'd risk anything obvious. Listen, he tried to use you as a pawn before. If he does it again, we'll deal with the situation if it happens. There's still the other option, you know. Sign the confidentiality agreement? Can't. It's all I've got. I sign that thing and I lose any power I might have. And without the Bureau to protect me, I'm kind of on my own. She crossed her arms and squinted her eyes. Really? On your own? Are you? Sorry, I know you've got my back. It's just that I don't want to drag you and Rebecca into my mess. Our mess. He glanced at the door before kissing her cheek. My mistake. Our mess. You're putting the cart before the horse's mouth anyway. Don't worry about Kronfeld. We've got problems trying to track down Nancy Bishop's killer. That's our focus. Oh, and remember the rules. No displays of affection on the job. Jeremy grinned and saluted. Yes, ma'am. Won't happen again. She dropped her hand on his knee and tilted her chin upward. Fine. You can make it up to me by grabbing lunch for us. I'll keep working. He bit his lip against the urge to kiss her again. You make it hard, you know? His heartbeat doubled as a wave of hot embarrassment flashed through his face. She laughed and turned back to her laptop. Good to know. Turkey on wheat, no mayo, extra sprouts, no chips. And hurry back. I'm starving. Jeremy put the car in park. Today was Kids Eat Free Day at the deli, and every child within a 20-mile radius sat packed into the minivan ahead of him at the drive-thru window. The downtime allowed him to clear his mind and let his thoughts wander. That's usually when his best ideas showed up. Music helped, and the woman on the radio mournfully explained to anyone who would listen that they should plan on 2 burials if her husband ever leaves. It wasn't clear whether the second grave was for the other woman or the wife. A flashing light in a window at the strip mall across the street caught his eye, and he surveyed the rows of shops. Walgreens, women's shelter consignments, Mount Hood Sporting Goods, Christian Living Bookstore. Huh. He needed to read Judges, and trying to do it on his monitor would invite the headache to return. Could stop there and pick up a Bible. Why did it bother him so much? There was a time when he might have enjoyed browsing in a religious bookstore, but not now. Not after Afghanistan and the things he'd seen. He massaged his forehead and closed his eyes. The things he'd done. A short honk jolted him, and he pulled forward. Sorry for your wait, the young woman at the window said. No problem. Did all those kids get a free meal? She shook her head. 1 free meal per adult. 2 adults in the van? There must have been a dozen kids in there. So finding something they'd all eat took a while. Jeremy arched his eyebrows. I've got to know. PB&J, the same thing they could have got at home without the hassle and expense. Bunch of kids fighting over 2 sandwiches. I'd hate to be in that van. She handed his food out the window. He gave her a 20. Thanks. Throw the rest in the tip jar. You'll earn it today. She nodded and tried to work up a smile. Oh, thank you for the raid. She nodded and tried to work up a smile. You have no idea. Have a great day. He laid the food in the passenger seat and eased his vehicle across the street. Several cars and SUVs clustered around the entrance, most of them with bumper stickers. Fish eating other fish and that had legs, Bible verses, crosses. He skipped the open space by the door and parked in an empty area of the lot. After sitting for a moment, he took a deep breath and pushed himself toward the bookstore. At the shop's entrance, he paused and looked at the display in the window. Books on how to live a Christian life, books on praying, and books on why bad things happen. He didn't need anyone to explain that to him. It was pretty simple. Bad people do bad things. Once inside, he strolled past the angel figurines and Jesus t-shirts to the Bible section. Sorted by version. The variety overwhelmed him, and he stood there staring at his options. Paperback or leather. Cheaper always looks better on the expense report. May I help you? He turned and saw a young man dressed in khakis and a button-down blue shirt. I was looking for a Bible, something I can understand, easy to read. The young man began pointing at different books. Paraphrased or direct translation. The paraphrased is easy to follow. It is kind of like reading a novel, but you still get the gist of the Bible. Nothing wrong with them, but if you're looking for something truer to the original, go with the translation. He scanned the bookshelves for a moment before grabbing a brown leather Bible. As he reached for the book, his shirt sleeve slid up and revealed part of a tattoo. Do they make him hide it? The clerk handed the Bible to Jeremy. See what you think about this one. It's a study Bible, so you get commentary included. Helps you understand some of the tougher parts. It's all tougher parts, isn't it? Yeah, it can be. Not so tough to read, but sometimes it's tough to follow, Rules and regulations, I know all about them. Do this, but don't do that. The young man shifted on his feet, opened his mouth, but closed it without speaking. How much is this one? Jeremy asked. I'm not looking to spend a lot of money. On sale, so it's $49.95, plus I'll imprint your name on the cover for free. That'll work, but I don't need my name on it. The clerk hesitated. We also have the same Bible in large print if you'd rather. That would be easier to... This'll do. Gotcha. Let's ring you up then. The pair headed to the cash register and Jeremy pulled out his wallet. He handed over his credit card and caught sight of the tattoo again. Nice tat. The employee pulled up his sleeve to expose the whole image. Thanks. Got it a couple months ago. Jeremy looked at the full-color image of the lion, covering most of the forearm, inked under it in script were the words, "Behold the Lamb." Isn't there something in the Bible about tattoos? I thought you weren't supposed to get them. That's old school. In the Old Testament, there's a warning against tattoos, but if you read it in context, it's talking about the rituals pagans used to do for their dead. The point was to keep Israel from doing those same rituals. Still, we get a lot of folks in here that think it's wrong to get one, so I try to keep mine covered. Don't want to scare off any business, huh? It's not that. To me, it's such a minor issue, I don't even think about it when I see someone with a tattoo. But to others, tattoos are a big deal. Why risk it? He handed back the credit card and gave Jeremy the Bible. So long as we agree on the big stuff, why get bogged down with little things? Sure, you don't want your name on the Bible? Only take a couple of minutes. Jeremy glanced toward his car, avoiding eye contact. Why did he feel like a 12-year-old sneaking a peek at a Playboy? No thanks. Maybe next time. No problem. My name's Jonathan. Stop by anytime. Jeremy waved and stepped into the dank air. He tucked the book under his coat and jogged to the car. Water puddles dotted his path, and he hopped over them, always timing his jumps so he landed on his right leg. In the car, he laid the Bible next to his lunch and peeked in the mirror. Hints of crow's feet around watery brown eyes. Stubbled, midday cheeks, red-tipped nose threatening to drip at any moment. Misty raindrops perched atop more salt than pepper hair. Still looking good. Jeremy handed the sandwich to Maggie. Want me to grab you a drink from the break room? Sounds good. You look cold. Better grab some coffee while you're in there. I made a fresh pot for you. Her grin got bigger. What's she up to? Will do. Then I'm going to plop down in the softest chair I can find and do some reading. Got a Bible while I was out. Figured I'd go through Judges, maybe get some insight into our killer. My guess is it's a bunch of old guys walking around smiting people. Smite. That's a word we don't use much. I kind of like it. The world needs more smiting of bad guys. I'll be the first to sign up. Good luck with all that, Maggie said. Let me know if you need any help. Not that I could provide much. Sunday school was a long time ago. New Testament, maybe. Old Testament, not a chance. I'll be in that cubicle over there. Still got lots of folders to go through, although I'm a little distracted by all the stuff on the walls. I don't know whose desk that is, but my powers of deduction tell me they like puppies and Star Wars. Oh, and the occasional vampire too. This sounds like the agency's screening process has slipped a bit. Back in my day, we would never hire anyone who liked vampires. Zombies, on the other hand. Maggie chuckled and wandered back to her work, while Jeremy headed to the break room. His scarred leg whined, protested, and punished each step. He picked up the coffee pot and held it at eye level. So that's what she thought was so funny. Scarcely enough Java to cover the bottom of the pot. He found a mug that might have been washed within the last day or two and poured in half the remaining coffee. After topping off the cup with hot water from the sink, he meandered through the office seeking more comfortable chair he could requisition for the small office. He scavenged a worn black leather manager's seat and dragged it back to his desk. The chair had a tall back with almost made up for the thin padding. He settled in and took a deep breath. Clacking keyboards, an occasional sneeze, and muted conversations offered a soothing background serenade. His eyelids drooped and he stretched his arms and legs. Gonna have to fight to stay awake. Just like church. He opened the Bible to the table of contents, ran his finger down the page. He found the introduction to Judges and read it twice. Israel messes up, God punishes them, then delivers them, repeat again and again and again. By the end of the first chapter, Jeremy realized he was going to need more coffee. Much stronger coffee. The names of the people and the tribes became a blur. The high point came when he remembered an old joke from his childhood days at Sunday school. Who in the Bible didn't have any parents? Joshua, son of Nun. Sunday school. It was a lot easier to believe back then, before choices were made that changed everything. He stood and stretched, trying to keep his mouth closed as he yawned. Enough time had passed that someone, anyone, should have made a fresh pot. Just in case, he took the long route back to the break room. His instincts were correct. A fresh cup of java at hand, he settled back into the chair, trying to focus on the pages before him. Amalekites, Benjaminites. Wonder who made the coffee. Stuck a sword in his belly so far he couldn't pull it out. Ouch. Drove a tent peg through his head. Tough girl. They sang a song about her. Wouldn't hear that one on the radio. Dropped a rock on his head. Might hear that one on the radio. The room brightened and Jeremy gazed out the window. Sunshine. He walked over and let the warmth hit his face, easing the tightness of his dry skin. Mount Hood was barely visible, and Jeremy stared at it while sipping his coffee. The sunlight streamed across the Bible, making the pages appear almost luminescent. Half expecting to hear an angelic choir singing the Hallelujah chorus, he returned to his reading. He reviewed several passages, seeking a connection to the killer. Nothing seemed to fit. Killed his virgin daughter as a burnt offering to God? He underlined a section and kept reading. Ah, good old Samson. Was there ever a man as clueless about women? I wish I'd gotten a cookie with lunch. There was no king, and everyone did what he wanted. Not much has changed. Coffee's getting cold. He flipped several pages to see how much more there was to read. Clouds filtered in front of the sun, darkening the room and sending a chill through him. He sipped the last of the coffee and let it sit on his tongue for a moment before swallowing. Let's see. Woman leaves man. Man goes after woman. Yada, yada, yada. He read it 4 times, each time going slower. The leather chair banged against the wall when he jumped up. Probably dented the wall, but he didn't stop to look. Mount Hood faded from view, but the aching in his leg was gone. Pushed back for now. Maggie needed to know. They had one of their answers. He knew why their target was killing. Right. And with that, it ends chapter 9. We'll begin next month on chapter 10. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. So I will see you in the next stream. Thank you so much for stopping by. And I will see you later. Alright, friends. Have a good one. Bye.